A few announcements before we get started. We're still looking for volunteers on the Affordable Housing Trust, and there's a couple openings on the Capital Improvements Committee. There's a complete list of other potential openings on the website, on the homepage under the volunteer tab. Early voting this Saturday, last Saturday, October 19th through this Friday. Next Friday, November 1st.
Next Friday.
Let me start again. Early voting started October 19th and is ongoing through November 1st from 8 to 5 in the town offices lobby.
Last day to register is this Saturday.
This Saturday? Okay. And somebody will be here to register?
8 AM to 5 PM.
Same hours, okay, great. Special town meeting will be held at the Kentucky Middle High School Auditorium Monday, October 28th at 7 PM. There's a quorum of, we need a quorum of 90, so everybody come and bring your neighbor and your whole family. As long as they're over 18 and registered to vote. Doors open at 6 PM for check-in. Finance committee booklets are available online from the website, and they're also scattered throughout town at the library, town hall. Whittier Tech listening sessions, they're looking for people to participate. There's more information on the town website. And Artichoke River Woods is having a celebration by Greenbelt on Tuesday, October 29th. I believe that starts at 10:30, not at 10. It's 10 to 10:30 noon. And finally, save the date. We're hosting a public meeting regarding the Main Street corridor planning project. That's Route 113. And that will be on November 14th from 6 to 8 PM at the Middle High School, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, under regular business, item A, public comment. Anybody interested in making a public comment?
Hi, I'm interested.
Okay.
Hi, it's Jen Solis and Cesar Solis. We're up on the top of 5 Break Hill Terrace. And we just want to, I understand that you guys are going to be talking about Break Hill a little bit tonight. I did have a nice email from Angus about it, but I just want to underscore that we have thoughts about this issue, and when the time is right, we'd like to share them. And we would request that we be included in notifications whenever you're going to have a discussion about this on your agenda. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jen. Any other public comment? All right. Item B, town manager updates.
Okay, first item, Middle Street Bridge, construction bids, financing, construction phase engineering and resident engineer services. As you know, the bids were open October 1st, 4 bids received, 3 of the 4 being within budget. Later on tonight's agenda, we'll be seeking the board's vote to authorize the chief procurement officer to sign a contract with the low bid. We'll get into it in more detail, but we've done reference checks, everything checks out, and we've been working with town council on a formal contract and so forth. The other items I have listed, I just wanted to kind of keep the board apprised as to the various levels at which work is ongoing on this project. Project financing, that's in place in terms of all the commitments. What I'm referring to there is work that we've been doing for some time, and we're working to really fine tune between us and the city of Newburyport is what order to draw down the different funding sources. There's the Newburyport Small Bridge Grant, the first small bridge grant, Newburyport second small bridge grant, our small bridge grant, and our MassWorks grant. So that's 4 grant funded sources, as well as the local commitments that have been made by both communities, with West Newbury's coming partially from ARPA funds and partially from stabilization. So between myself and Jenny and Ethan Manning, the finance director in Newburyport, we're really getting down to like the nitty gritty of how the invoices will be processed and what order we will hit the different accounts. And one of the things we have to be mindful of is with regard to the MassWorks grant, when that was approved, it was approved based on a kind of set schedule. And we need to, as you probably recall from the last MassWorks grant, we have to file quarterly and annual reports with the MassWorks grant administrator, and we need to show that our drawdown is consistent with the schedule that was approved. And if there's changes, we have to get that approved. So it's this kind of choreography that we need to do where, making sure that we're both kind of drawing things down in the order that makes sense, with basically the local funds being hit last, but also making sure that we remain in compliance with MassWorks, not just with the end date, which is obvious, but with the actual timing of drawdown. So that's something we've, had some meetings and I've kind of set out in an email that everyone's kind of agreed to generally, but we want to really formalize that. And also make sure, for instance, on invoice processing in general, it's all going to go through the town of West Newbury. We're going to be the contracting entity for the construction as well as for the resident engineer services. But there may be instances where it may make sense for Newburyport to pay some expenses directly, because, for instance, if they're paying expenses from their small bridge grant, they're gonna need to have an audit trail of where the money went. And it's gonna be a lot easier for them to explain to Mass DOT or to their auditors that the money went to, the resident engineer, as opposed to money going to West Newbury. So there's the complications of this project traversing two communities just are gonna continue probably right up until 2 years from now when the project's complete. So I just wanted to make you aware that even though we have all the funding committed, there's still like the fine grain of accounting and that's all part of the kind of project management that we're actively working on.
It's a good problem to have now.
It's a good problem to have, yeah.
With relative to the funding and how it gets paid out after the grants with West Newbury, it'll be ARPA and then the money
Yeah, the local stabilization would be the last.
right, because
Okay.
hopefully will be money left in it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and as you may or may not know, because I can't remember, I think it was in the bid documents that you saw, but the overall bid package was, I think something on the order of 1,500 pages. I mean, it was quite, including 1,000 pages of permitting. But within that is the required date of completion. Actually, that's right in the contract. It's the end of November 2026. That was done for two reasons. For one, we think working with BSC that's a realistic timeline. But secondly, that ensures that the ARPA funds would be fully expended prior to the deadline of December 31st of 2026. So.
Now I was gonna ask when we get to the contract about that, so I'll ask it now, you brought it up.
Yeah.
Has anybody had a conversation with the contractor? Are they giving you a schedule?
No, they wouldn't do that typically until a contract is executed. But yeah, we'll be looking to them to provide a schedule and a projected drawdown, financial drawdown, similar to what you've seen for other capital projects.
Because that's quite a long schedule for that value of the project. I would think they're gonna compress that quite a bit.
And that would be great. We just didn't want to hem people in, too much. So ideally, obviously, the quicker it gets done, the happier we'll be. But
Now, there's liquidated damages in there. I saw that at
Yeah.
1,000 a day, but there's no advantage if they finish early.
correct.
Some contracts have it both ways.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah,
date, you get 1,000 one way, 1,000 the other.
yeah.
So I guess what staff members will all of this accounting and everything fall on? Primarily Jenny and?
Jenny and I,
Okay.
yeah.
Seems like a lot.
It's a lot. I've been saying all along, like, just because, we work on that bridge just about every day.
Yeah.
If we didn't, and we're gonna have to continue to do that for quite a long time to come, just because we've met a lot of milestones with the municipal agreement and the grants and now the bids and, we're making huge progress, but I just don't want anyone, including the community, to forget this is like a daily focus to keep, it's a major project and there's just a lot of things that, a lot of details that really need to be paid attention to kind of day in and day out. So that ties into the next, kind of subcategory of this item, which is the construction phase engineering and the resident engineer services. We've made a lot of headway on, so the construction phase engineering, that's easy because that's the design engineer BSC, but we do need to receive from them a proposal for that, which we expect to receive in the next 2 weeks or so. And that's for their responsibilities during the construction phase. The resident engineer, that's a different vendor. We actually held interviews earlier today. Butch and I were part of that, along with John Eric White and Wayne in Newburyport, as well as Micah Morrison at BSC was part of that. So we interviewed two um, vendors for resident engineer services, both very, very qualified. This is what they do. This is what they've been doing for decades. We were impressed with both. One really stood out. So we've invited them to get us a cost proposal with a very detailed scope. John Eric is kind of running point on that, which is great, because they've got a lot of experience with that. So I know for, speaking for Butch and myself, it was just fascinating, even just sitting in on the interviews, just the number of details, and we both agreed we're gonna sleep a lot better having a resident engineer who's able to sweat all those details, and obviously we'll be paying attention too, but it's, to have someone under contract who's making sure that all the materials are exactly what was delivered, and that the hours billed are exactly what the hours worked, and all of that kind of boots on the ground is a huge value.
Is the resident engineer, the two that have been interviewed, were they sole practitioners or are they companies?
Both companies,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. In one case, one of the companies, for this particular assignment, if they were selected, would have a retired person who actually used to be the city engineer in Amesbury, is part of the team they put forward. The other would be doing it entirely with in-house. So that's a brief update on that. We did, as I mentioned, we did have the two interviews today with resident engineer. So we expect to be, ideally getting a contract in place in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The onboarding, I asked both prospective vendors the same question about, assuming they're selected, once they're under contract, what kind of ramp up time are they gonna need to get familiar with those 1,000 pages of permit documents and really get to where they're ready to have the pre-construction meeting, and that's all going to inform when we would provide notice to proceed to the construction contractor, because we're obviously not going to do that until we've got all our ducks in a row. And both of them provided the same answer, that it was probably on the order of 2 to 3 weeks once they're under contract, by which point they'd be like fully ready to go. So it's, we and Newburyport, we all felt that it's theoretically possible we could have it notice to proceed before the end of the calendar year, which would be pretty exciting.
The on-site engineer, will that, the compensation be based on what was in the, original estimate by?
No, that's basically, so that's part of, that amount that we've carried is what we're looking at as the available funds. We haven't shared all that, so that's gonna be part of when we get their price proposal.
Oh, okay, so you
There's
don't have
gonna
that,
be,
okay.
yeah, no, that was based on kind of a budgeting estimate.
Okay.
But those are some of the discussions we're having as to, there's gonna be certain phases of work where we're gonna want and need full-time inspection, others where it's gonna be much slower, and we wanna make sure that we're, not paying people, other than for the work they're doing. So that's where the scoping is gonna, and it would be a time and materials contract. It would not be a lump sum contract.
With these engineers, have you asked them if they had relationships with this company in the past?
That actually didn't come up. This was kind of the first cut interview, but that's definitely a question.
Why don't the retired guy work for them? That's not good.
Yeah, no, we'll make sure that we didn't actually even mention the name of the low bid contract.
I would assume if they're in the industry, they know it, though, they track those things.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. So that's the Middle Street Bridge update. The water site testing results, you have the report in the packet. Very exciting. That's also on as an action item later tonight as a potential next step for that. I just wanted to share that report's been received.
It's fun to read too. No, it's good. I mean, all new to me, but it looks pretty promising too.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Next item, the structural engineering report regarding the masonry above Page School. You have that in your packet. We did have a working meeting yesterday morning. Brian was out this week using up some of his FY24 vacation time. Well earned. But he did take a look at it, and he sent us a quick email verifying that he does feel confident that the work that's recommended that he could do in-house. So we're gonna wait and receive the drawings that were referenced in the materials. So we will receive drawings, and, you know, I wanna obviously make 100% sure. And also, we all need to understand, because I read that, I can't really understand it, like drawings will be much more helpful to know exactly what it is they're recommending. So I'll keep you posted on that. Once we get those drawings, I'll share them.
That's the question. They gave two scenarios. One is the immediate recommendation to fix the, and then there's the long-term recommendation. Are we gonna get a request a price to find out what that long-term repair cost would be?
That's, I can look into
I mean, I
that.
don't know how much we still have left in ARPA, but you know, this building, even if, regardless of what we do, it's gonna be up for at least another 10 years. And
Mhm.
it would be a bad idea to at least get a number of what it might cost to fix it appropriately.
Good idea.
Another problem.
Next item, the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. We have I put the draft in there along with some comments received from Christine. I don't know if you guys had additional comments, but we would definitely want to bulk up the rationale. Obviously, the number of commercial vehicles above that threshold is quite small, nowhere near the 5 to 8% that DOT is going to look for. So. But we're hoping that we can make a compelling argument that for other reasons of sustainability, you know, hopefully they'll consider it. I'm sure they'll consider it, but whether they approve it or not, you know, we'll see. We'll do the best we can.
So this road is not like a shortcut cut through for anybody, because it's a long ways around, whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
So I'm looking in that time frame. It's 2 large trucks went through.
Yeah.
My assumption or guess is that it could be a delivery truck to a house, a lumber truck or a moving van, you don't know, so.
Moving van probably isn't above that heavy commercial vehicle threshold.
2.5 tons, is that what it was?
Well, tons pretty light.
Yeah.
I thought I saw that somewhere.
Yeah,
I just thought that the Tesla truck weighs 3 tons. So,
Yeah, I mean.
no, all I'm saying is whatever the large vehicles are, if you exclude them fully from the road, how do people accomplish certain things?
Like a sewer, you know, if they're putting a.
Well, they're building 2
system.
houses down there in subdivision, so how did a lumber truck get in there?
I thought somewhere there was some reference, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I'd seen some reference to, local traffic.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Well, local traffic, these exclusions don't apply to local. If someone's destination is on that, the vehicle exclusion wouldn't apply. It really only applies to pass-through vehicles.
Right, so what I'm saying, I don't think a large truck is not gonna pass through that road just for the heck of it, because it's gonna cost them much more time than if you went up to 113 and down. This is not a
Right.
shortcut.
Right.
And particularly when they look at that road from either end, they're gonna go, that's not a good choice.
Mhm.
So it'd be nice to, I guess, to actually gain anything.
Well, and that's, you know, we've talked about, you know, I think receiving the data kind of shows that even if we don't get the DOT approval of the exclusion, the data would suggest that it's probably, those heavier vehicles probably aren't a big factor on that road anyway.
Based on just comments, you know, anecdotal comments that I've heard from people who live on the road. It is not unheard of to have significant truck traffic. You know, not a lot of it, but to have, you know, tractor trailer type trucks come through. Clearly, when somebody does that, they probably made a mistake. Or their GPS for some reason has, you know, for some arbitrary reason has routed them that way. But.
Or maybe we're heading down Bridge Street and saw the overhead bridge and took a right because they didn't have anywhere else to go. I don't know.
I think this was even before that point. I quite honestly, I don't recall who I heard it from, but I was probably 2 different people independently had commented.
I'm down there usually twice a week walking.
Yeah.
I've never seen a large truck down there. That's why-
And you've been on it more than I have, I'm sure.
I'm gonna ask Rob, because he's sitting here.
I lived there.
And
So-
you've never seen,
I have on occasion.
Yeah.
But the occasions are few and far between,
Yeah.
and they're typically large moving vans.
right,
That's typically what it is. There's one fellow down on River Road that used to have deliveries made to his business at his house, but I never really saw a lot of truck in and out of there.
Well, there's a construction company down there now too.
No, they're, yeah,
So
This guy, wait, okay, there's a guy down with construction trucks in Jared all the time.
the signs have come down. Sam, the building inspector looked into that. So
right,
it's not-
he's not supposed to be doing that.
So I would say that this strikes me as fairly accurate as to what
The
you
numbers,
asked. Yes, the
yeah.
numbers, that this doesn't, what was the time frame? How long?
It's 3 days, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you
12
will
to
see them
16,
on
4 days.
occasion.
So,
My guess is they mostly are there to service people on the road.
Right, you gotta get into.
As a guess, Rick.
Yeah, it is 2.5 ton, which is not even a commercial, 10,000 pounds is a,
Dave Archibald's Tesla truck weighs over that.
yeah. So that seems
Until
kind
they
of
stay
odd.
off the river.
Anyway,
there are a lot of trucks, actually, I mean, if you have what does an F-250 weigh? It's probably pretty close to that, an F-350.
I know the Tesla truck's one of the heaviest out there, because I was going to the Ashland Swamp and I saw the sign, I said, I wonder how much it weighs, so I Googled, it's almost 7,000 pounds.
Yeah, 2.5 is like your smaller pickup truck.
Yes, that's 7,000, it's all stainless steel, that's why it's heavy.
all right, let's get back on topic.
So-
Actually, I just have one observation on page 43. It's actually in the document from, MVPC, which is great, and I appreciate what they've done, and I think it's really good. Just a minor thing, on the last paragraph, it says, on behalf of the town of Newbury,
Yes,
Okay,
and that should be West Newbury,
Yep.
obviously.
yep. Good catch.
All right, so we are voting on this later, or is this just?
Not tonight, yeah, no, I wanted to share the progress draft, if there's specific input, beyond what's been discussed tonight, just let me know, we'll, at some point, at some future meeting, whether that's in a week and a half, or probably a couple of meetings out, we'll have a more polished draft in front of you that you can then, consider for endorsement.
Okay. When they did this traffic study, there were also devices on Bridge Street. I mean, did they get comparable data for Bridge Street?
I don't know.
I would just be curious to see that, given the high number of legitimate, heavy commercial vehicles that go across the river to the establishment on the other side.
Yeah, they may have had, as part of their routine traffic.
They had it out for 2 or 3 days. I think it
Okay.
was the same period they did this, right before.
That might be part of that. It kind of rings a bell when we talked to them about whether they can help us on this. Part of why they were able to deliver this draft very quickly from the first conversation we had was I think about 2 months ago. And I seem to recall they mentioned that they already had their traffic counter lined up. So they were able to add this, and do it kind of more quickly maybe than, so that might have been part of their regular traffic counts.
Okay.
But I'll see what they've got.
And when did the traffic you're referencing originates on a farm in April?
It goes to a farm.
Goes to a farm.
Originates in Danvers.
Okay.
Let's see, Coffin Street culvert replacements. We had a meeting with Williams Asparagus last Friday. That design work's coming along nicely. I did just want to proactively let you know, there is going to be some need for work on private property. So, we'll be reaching out to those budding landowners, and as long as that's amenable, that would be, those easements could be accepted by the town with a vote of the select board. Some easements require a town meeting vote. This type of easement does not. Part of what Williams Asparagus would provide is the actual easement plans, the physical drawings. And then we would, when the time comes, we need to work with town council to actually draw the easements themselves. There is also one area of additional study needed because there's an additional culvert on private property downstream of one of these culverts that goes under someone's driveway. And so that needs to be modeled to see if the increased size and this culvert would have any impact on that, and if so, how would that be handled? So just like every project, it, you know, takes twists and turns, but wanted to keep you guys apprised of it.
And how are they working out? Williams and Stars?
Seems great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the first meeting I had been at. I didn't go to the site visit a month or so ago, and, you know, they were right on top of it. I mean, they seem to really be doing it. Next item, just a brief update. It kind of was nice to see that West Newbury was specifically called out in the
One of three.
one of 3 towns in the state with a fully funded OPEB liability.
Jenny, she said that might not totally be accurate.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we'll take it where we.
We'll tell you.
That's what I said.
Were you saying there aren't really people, it's only us?
So, and then the Vision Zero, you know, no real comment on that, just letting you know, we closed the loop with MVPC on those comments. And then finally, on the other updates, what I did is I took this and just did a simple color coding.
That's great, so we. can
Yeah,
just-
and I thought this would be kind of cool. I could just do this for every, not necessarily every meeting, but maybe every couple of meetings.
Yeah.
And that way, I'm certainly not gonna talk tonight about everything with a green square. But this tells you kind of there was activity on that since the last update. And I felt like if we do this methodically, this is gonna give us kind of a nice look back at, like, you know, where we are on things, or if things are lagging, or if, and then if there is something, so if you like this, I would continue to kind of do this for future packets. And then if you see something that you're like, oh, it says here a green, you know, square next to replace phone systems, what's going on with that? And I can tell you.
I was totally lost, because it doesn't come up with black and white.
Okay, we can make
I'm
that.
looking, hang on, okay, what's it mean?
Okay, so I marked in green those where there's been something positive and then I marked in red where there's been something negative, a setback.
There's only one red thing.
Only one red thing,
In your model there.
yeah.
But now guess which one it is?
Yeah. So, and then also, I know when we had our goal setting over the summer, I'd mentioned that some of the things that are on the longer range doesn't mean we're not gonna make progress. It means we're not gonna, you know, so like if something comes up that's, you know, more opportunistic, you know, then it gives me a vehicle to say, hey, this wasn't necessarily a priority, but it came across our desk and we worked on it. And so,
So just to make it, everybody feel better, if there's, are you gonna have another color for complete?
that'd be good. Yeah, do something like that. Yeah. So, and, let's see. Oh, I meant to, oh, no, okay, that's different. One thing on the decarbonization roadmap, that one's green because of Rick. Rick sent some data to the vendor a week or so ago, so I was like, I didn't do it, but progress was made, so thank you,
All I
Rick.
got was send a question, we got an answer. so-
Yeah, well, progress.
That's progress. Yeah. All right, good,
That's what I've got.
great. All right, moving on to item C, department updates and discussion. So the Sage Center had a special meeting today. How did that go?
Went very well, very well. We probably had 20 or so, maybe more. Yeah.
Great.
People clapped at the end. I think they were it's really a nice tradition.
Yeah.
People can ask questions. There weren't a lot of questions.
There's not a lot.
Yeah.
There's more questions about like future things.
Yeah, yeah, there was some discussion about some non-town meeting topics.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you both for.
And as always, the food was exceptional.
Mhm.
Nice meat was on, yeah.
Great. All right, item B is designation of West Newbury as a tidal river community in the Massachusetts Resilient Coast Plan. So, do you want to summarize that, Angus, or?
It's something actually Rick's been talking about for years, as with the coastal zone management and, you know, there's geographic areas that are designated, we have not been, and now with this designation, I don't want to get ahead of what I know about it, because it's very, very preliminary what we've learned, but I think it's fair to say this will expand our eligibility for future programs and grants, because of our designation. So, we're learning more about it.
I actually,
Go to the-
I listened into the one on Monday.
Oh, you did? How was
Yeah.
it?
It's primarily, this is primarily an explanation of what this is about and where it's going.
Mhm.
I think it's worth listening into if somebody has the time, because it will be, you know, it will be progressive, sessions that, you know, where each time there's more and feedback will be a good thing for them, but, you know, they were just explaining why it would be done, you know, why there is this coastal initiative, and how it's broken up. I think there are 7 regions, you know, we are included in what is really a new region that, not that the other regions were in this format before, but geographically, we cover an area that wasn't previously, or were included in an area that wasn't previously covered. CZM, is, you know, federally designated, or, you know, CZM areas are federally designated. And there's generally either a geographical or an infrastructure limitation as to how far they extend inland. And in our case, with the Merrimack River, the boundary only goes up as far as, it's either the chain bridge or the I-95 bridge. I think it's probably the chain bridge. So if you're in a community that is downstream of the chain bridge and it touches on the river, then it's covered by CZM. But if not, such as West Newbury, even though we're on a tidal stretch of the river, we're not included in consideration by CZM. So this now pulls all the towns on the tidal part of or all the municipalities on the tidal portion of the Merrimack River into the discussion. The examples that were discussed, you know, there weren't a lot of specifics, but the examples that were referenced primarily dealt with, sort of high energy coastline or salt marshes, or, there are, you know, examples of that were relevant to, you know, damage to properties, you know, to privately owned properties. So what we're looking at here at this point in time, you know, with the River Road, using that as a point of reference, it's not clear to me how this will address, our issue. So I threw that out as a question. You know, they had this, I don't remember the name of the application, but there was an online, application that you could launch to from the Zoom meeting. And I could put in a question about whether or not they would, be addressing, municipal infrastructure such as roads along the tidal river. And, that's pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. Just one note, just in case anybody, else joins in on this, on the session, that's tomorrow, isn't it? The area that we are in, they've designated as the Upper Merrimack River. And I sent a note at the end through the chat suggesting that they might want to reconsider that name and instead put in something like the Upper Tidal Merrimack River. Because in other conversations, in other contexts, we're the Lower Merrimack. We're not the Upper Merrimack. You know, the Upper Merrimack is generally above the New Hampshire border. And so I don't know how they'll respond to that. I did get a quick reply from, one of the Newburyport City Councilors was on, and, she, immediately replied, you know, good point. But I have no idea how this program will deal with that. But I really think hopefully they'll change that, because it will somewhere in the future lead to confusion.
Did this come as an email to you? Or-
Yeah, I seem to recall, we heard about it in a couple of different ways. Yeah, this was an email that came to me, and I think it went
I went
to,
to Christine,
others
that's what,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
but I think there was also a second email with similar information that was, I only included this one in here, but I feel like we heard about it twice in the span of like 2 days.
Okay,
Um,
could you forward this, link, this is not a link to the.
oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, then the final item is is an update on the progress of the senior tax work-off and the tax work-off programs. Any questions from either of you? Or-
It's pretty straightforward, same as the senior, eliminate the age requirement at the military service.
Good.
That'll be finalized soon.
And, does that get voted on by anybody or?
It hasn't in the past, it's more just, it's just implementation of the policy that town meeting authorized.
Mhm. Okay. Item D, any board, commission, or committee updates or liaison updates? No. Okay. Moving on to action items, under item A, we have a request for permission to allow a resident to bow hunt on Sawmill Brook Conservation Property. So this is something we discussed last time and, asked Angus if his staff would look into what the insurance ramifications or the liability issues might be with this, and seems like it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of responses and a fair
Yep.
assessment, not quite clear what the town's liability is, or.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think if you, do vote to authorize it, there's definitely steps that could be taken to make sure that, to minimize any exposure the town would have. But, insurance, as I think I conveyed to you, I've been a little bit frustrated because this isn't the first time we've asked insurance. We asked them a year ago and we had a response that was kind of like wishy-washy, and then we followed up again and multiple calls, it's just been hard to pin them down. And I talked to town council about it. That was the last call I made because I don't want to run up a bill if I can get the information for free. He said he wasn't surprised that they were a little squishy on it because they're never gonna specifically say, yes, we will, protect the town from such a claim because it's all fact specific. If the town was to do something that was, negligent, then insurance is gonna say, hey, that's not necessarily something they would cover. So, but, we finally did pin them down for a written response, and, I forwarded that around this afternoon. So they did say if it was allowed, that they would highly recommend best practices for signage in the area, having individuals sign a waiver to hold the town harmless for injury. But he did caution that there would be exposure in the event of a third party being injured. He felt for sure that, in that unfortunate event, that whoever was injured would almost certainly sue the town. And so they can't say that there's no exposure.
Did you see that, Chris? That email came, are you reading it right now? Okay.
Because I was gonna mention the signage component, I already read it,
Oh, you did, okay.
but that was how do you implement that? We're behind the gun, no pun intended.
Mhm.
If this was June or July, I think we could come up with a better response.
So where's that leave us? I mean, this is not a hunting policy, this is just this one particular applicant who's with us tonight. And is requesting to be grandfathered in because of his prior experience on the property.
Right.
Which I think we all appreciate that, but my struggle is grandfathered in, but the status of the property was different, it wasn't open to the public, so that has changed, even though
Right.
there's a grandfather component, now you potentially, I don't know, realistically, have people out there.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you align that.
It wasn't explicitly open to the public, but it was.
Town didn't own it either,
But
but
they're not, correct, that's correct, but, unless land is posted, it isn't not open to the public.
So.
I guess before the town had no liability.
Right,
something happened, that's
correct,
number one.
right.
And further, we didn't have trails of people out there, which made it easier.
So how do you want to move forward?
Well, I don't have a problem with it if it's an area where that's not in proximity to trails.
Are you able to pull that map up? I mean, I know that was last
Yeah.
meeting's packet, but,
Sure.
I mean, there are trails throughout, but the most used trails are in the, Arcos Place side.
Ask the gentleman, are there any trails in that area? Do you know?
Where you're asking to hunt, are there trails?
There's no trails near where I hunt at all.
Yeah, so there's the photograph, you can see
Yeah,
that,
I hunt with the little red blockers.
Yeah.
Or that's where I always have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the trail, the only trail near there is actually Poorhouse Lane. There's nothing that really spurs off to the left of Poorhouse Lane in that image.
Mhm.
You see the new trail that you established is the red trail down at the very bottom.
Yep.
And that's completely on the other side of this fairly large swamp from where I am. I've never seen anybody down where I am because I'm so far off the beaten track.
So Chris, what do you think? Sorry to put it on you, but you were the one that had the most concern about it, right, in this particular application?
I'm still concerned about it.
All right. So what if we were to post a sign, you know, on Poorhouse Lane, where somebody may leave the trail to go into that wood? Say,
My question on signage, and we talked about if we had a zoning, if we picked up parcel land.
Yeah.
Signage, there's gotta be certain criteria for the signage. How frequent, what it looks like, where it is, things like that. And as the MIA representative, Connor Powell states, you know, if you're using best practices for signage, I don't know what that is.
yeah,
So to sit there and say, put a sign at the trailhead is a guess, it's probably not a good guess.
I think there's I'm stretching because I don't recall when or where I read this, and it was decades ago. But I thought there was for posting of property to be, fully, legal isn't the right word. There's a standard as far as sign spacing is concerned, signs every certain number of feet. And my guess is that would fall within, that best practices would fall within, or that would fall within best practices, the state's reference.
We don't know what that is though.
I don't know, but, I'm sure it's available somewhere.
Here's the problem, we're up against the time frame. He's got roughly another month of hunting season available. So if we sit there and say we wanna find out the regs on best practices, come back at our next meeting in a couple of weeks. He'll have about 3 days to get out there and hunt. And this is a short season, isn't it? Doesn't it typically go through the end of December?
The bow hunting season, bow hunting actually can be performed throughout all of the hunting seasons. So usually hunting season starts with bow only, and then it will go to shotgun, and then it will go to primitive weapons. And a bow can actually be used across all those seasons.
So what's the cutoff rate for you to finish hunting this year?
Excuse me?
What's the time frame that you would have to stop hunting if you were allowed to this year?
Since I hunt with a bow, and probably end in, December. I haven't really looked for this year. But on the signage question, each state and county can be different, but usually it's by state, and sometimes you'll see you have to either, post no hunting or no trespassing every 50 feet along the perimeter, or paint 2 purple stripes. It's also allowable in some states, like the state of Maine. So there's never been any signage there, but, most people come in from the main entrance over at Mill Pond, and I think the signage there is pretty clear. the new sign on this new access by the Austin property says right down on the bottom, right, if you're interested in hunting or trapping, to contact the select board.
I think we are talking about signs to alert the public that it's possible that hunting is going
Oh,
on.
there's somebody who's in there?
Yeah, right,
Oh, I see.
the opposite.
Yeah, you could. I wouldn't mind.
But to your point, that's like figuring out what the sign says, where they're placed, and
Almost like hanging up a handicap sign and saying, there's a bow hunter.
But you sort of have to alert people, if somebody's rambling through the woods and goes out there, they get into your area,
And the deer can't read the sign, so it wouldn't,
Yeah,
no, they seem to be pretty smart.
but you know, bow hunters are a different breed. It's just like, people riding a bicycle on the road versus motor cars. And we're very low key.
And I have a bow hunter on my land, I understand it and I appreciate it. And if it was me saying, could you hunt on my land, if I didn't have somebody, I'd say yes. But this is about liability for the town, and
Sure.
that's my concern, it's no disrespect to you.
Sure.
We saw your resume before, and you seem to be a very reasonable, responsible
Yeah,
person, so I'd like to accommodate, but the liability that we expose, potential liability to the residents concerns me.
yeah, well, I think anytime where you have a potential liability for all the different reasons, but this is clearly a unique use in a way.
So, this, there's a thought, so if we allow walkers, we allow bike riders, we allow horses. If somebody's on a horse and the horse results, and for some reason an interaction with a horse results in an injury to somebody who's a pedestrian. Is it, how do we deal with that?
you're not probably trying to figure the hunting thing out. It's
Yeah,
not-
I'm not trying
No, I'm not trying, I'm just saying, you know, isn't it somewhat equivalent?
I don't,
And we accept it.
no, I don't think you do, the person riding the horse is recreational, the person hunting is trying to kill something. There's a significant difference in the intent of the activity.
How did you handle it when the dog walker, the lady lost the control of the dogs and it bit a runner?
Yeah, the animal control officer had to
There's a third
investigate.
party
Yeah.
injured by a sanctioned use, sort of kind of.
Yeah.
I think there's always gonna be a liability for any use.
Unfortunately, that's the truth.
Yeah. I think what's challenging here is that we don't have a policy in place, you know, and anything we allow here may result in making it more challenging for us down the
This
road.
is a cutting edge
Yes,
policy opportunity.
right, but
trying.
we can't quite pull it off by this hunting season, I'm afraid that that's where we're at. As much as, I mean, that's my opinion, as much as I want to accommodate you, I feel like we're kind of raised to do this and we may end up regretting it.
Well, if we had the information we needed by our next meeting,
We have to put the signs out,
I'll go back to the point I made on a number of issues lately. Every time we rush, we make a mistake. You just said it again, rush it. I mean, I think you can proceed and say, okay, somebody's got to gather the information on what is the best practices of signage. And then somebody would have to put them up, and we'd suggest it would be the applicant if he were interested, if we approved it. If that could be accommodated in the time frame, I don't have a real problem.
Mhm. So then who's gonna look into what the signs need to say and how far they're.
That's what I'm saying, I don't know. Organization that specifies.
I mean, I think, you know, I had envisioned if the board were to consider this something, you know, definitely if you were to do it, signage, you know, I think that and an indemnification form, signage, you know, I envision something at, you know, any entrance point to the property, just simply saying, please note, the select board has authorized bow hunting on this property from, you know, during, you know, from up until,
Again, wording right there, not authorized bow hunting, has authorized a specific individual.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody's gonna be up in the trees.
Well, and, you know, that in and of itself could
And it could
become
be
a can of worms, because then someone else comes in and says, well, why'd they authorize this person, not, you know, not me, so it's.
It seems to me like the best path forward is to just put a pause on this and make a commitment to get this worked out for the next hunting season. I know the Mill Pond Committee has said that they would work to help us, as has the Conservation Commission. And you said the new conservation agent has experience.
Yeah, he said when he used to work in Framingham, that they had a pretty well-developed policy. They had certain parcels that the town owned that were identified as being eligible for hunting. They did it on a lottery system. People had to apply by a certain date. And the town government would only consider up to a certain number of permissions. And he just anecdotally mentioned that there had been one property while he was there that had previously been authorized for hunting, but because it was getting more, you know, walking and more kind of other activity, that they no longer gave authorization there because they felt it was getting more risky. So he's gonna assemble some documents and background on that. And I actually expect I'll have that any day now, so.
Mhm. Okay. So what are we gonna do? Feedback.
I'll make a motion and then we'll see where it goes. I mean, I'll make a motion that, that we allow hunting as requested by one individual for that one individual, you know, based on their historic usage of the property when it was under previous ownership, for purpose of bow hunting.
For this hunting season only.
For what term?
For this hunting season.
For this hunting season.
And I'm assuming that by next year, that we'll have figured this out
Mhm.
on a broader scale. So, but that's not part of the motion, yeah.
Mhm. All right, so I'll second the motion. Angus, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just, when we did this up in Maine, which I know I've told you before, it was, you know, we have policy and practice. One thing that we did that I also think would be good if you end up approving it is, when we granted permission to someone to hunt town property up there, part of the requirement was that on the day that they were going out, they would specifically notify, the police department. That way, if anyone's like, calls the police to say, hey, there's some person out with a bow, you know, the dispatcher can say, oh, yeah, that's Mr. Jones, and they're out there with permission. But it was just kind of a nice thing in case, yeah, so
Okay.
that's another kind of thing we could do that I think somewhat mitigates against any potential charge of like gross negligence. You know, I think the more the town's doing to bend over backwards to try to make it safe is something that, you know, it doesn't prevent someone from suing you, but it may prevent, you know, it may mitigate the risk of an actual loss.
Mhm. Okay. Rick, are you assuming we would install signs or is that part of your?
Yeah, I mean, from a practical standpoint, that's a very good question.
So you've got a whole program here involved now, okay, who installs the signs, how many, what do they say?
Yeah.
Well, you know, exactly where do they get placed, for what purpose, and then you've got a letter of indemnification, you then have to run by council and so on.
Mhm. All right. Anything further?
There's obviously a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I understand, why someone might not vote for this. I guess I just feel like something we need to, you know, we need to make a decision and define the questions that we have for the future if we don't approve it now.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like there's too many questions right now, and I don't wanna rush into it, but I do wanna make a commitment to getting this resolved for the next hunting season, because, I mean, I think we pushed it to our long-term plan, but, I think in fairness to the person that's requesting it as well as.
Well, not just this parcel, there's other parcels of
Right,
town that should be
It's a bigger
allowed
question.
to fund.
Yeah. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye. Nay.
So I'm sorry to vote against it, but, this is something we'll take seriously and get resolved for next hunting season. Appreciate your input on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, Angus has pulled together some additional, reference information as to how it's been done elsewhere or is being done elsewhere, and obviously Blair will have some info and, I think we just have to move the idea ahead incrementally, and it isn't something we should make a quick decision on, we should get it right.
And I also really want to get to the bottom of this question about tidelands, because that's something that Michelle.
Yeah, so I reached out to, Wildlife today.
Okay.
Yeah, I left a phone message and emailed, I found the right person to ask the question to. so
Okay.
That'd be other.
Good.
for that.
Yeah, my guess is Michelle's right there. Because, we've probably all seen references to, crossing beaches, which people covet their beaches and they don't like to allow other people to cross the beaches. But if you're below the high tide line,
I think
you're allowed to pass and repass, and it's for the purposes of fishing, hunting and navigation or something like that, some
Yeah.
combination like that.
I think the question is whether the municipality has any right to, impose their bylaws or policy or anything. So hopefully we'll get to the bottom of that as well. All right. Item B is request to authorize the town manager to execute the new contract with Aldo Ambulance. Chris, are you satisfied with how the question was resolved?
Yep.
Did you have anything else, Rick, on this?
Oh, actually, I did have, there was one, let me get back to that.
Council reviewed it, right?
Yes.
I mean, I just looked for the one section I was looking at before, I didn't look.
Yeah, they had a number of red lines, nothing that substantive,
I think you sent the red lines.
I think I did,
See 'em,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I left them out of here, I didn't want to confuse it, and I felt I'd already sent them by email, but yeah, nothing too substantive, and then
Yeah.
I'll went to Cataldo.
I think the wording that I was requesting got put in pretty well.
Yeah. I don't have anything, this is not really substantive, but it's a question of whether or not it's still relevant, on, page, 72, under, I guess this is 3D, the 3 somewhere. Well, it is D, I don't see a 3.
It's the.
Okay, not 3-dimensional. Oh, yeah, this is 3, okay, 3D, says, there's a reference to driver's license when not same as social security number. I thought, am I wrong? Didn't the state
They're not the
at
same.
some point, yeah, they're not the same. I don't think that your driver's license can be your social security number anymore. So that maybe needs to change.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's strike, yeah.
Okay, anything else? So we will make a motion to authorize Angus to sign.
Make a motion authorizing it to sign the Catalado ambulance contract as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item C, request to authorize our chief procurement officer to award the contract for reconstruction Mill Street Bridge. Any questions on this?
Not questions, but comments maybe.
Yeah,
I know there was something about you have to accept a little bit, whatever those conversations were, you pretty much have to. And I looked through the bid tabulations. The only thing that sort of threw me was the fourth one from the bottom, control of water structure, and their number is significantly different than others. As I mentioned to Angus earlier, that they own the whole bid tab when they break it out. So with that, and then when you look at, the BSC group, they mentioned specifically that control of water structure and, to watch that very carefully during the construction, so. And that's the only thing that flagged was really being out of line compared to any of the other bidders. They're high on some, they're low on others, but nothing terribly much, but they're like at 75,000 for that, the next bid is at 900,000. One's at 757, the other is 750, so they're looking at that significantly different.
What was, John Eric's response to that? He didn't seem to think it was that important, right?
Not that it wasn't important.
Well, but not that
But-
significant.
Right.
It was a recognition of reality.
Well, yeah, he felt that basically with the right, management practices, that it didn't need to be a huge cost item, it's really a paying attention.
Okay.
And that with the right, emphasis by the, by the town and the city, but also by the design engineer and the resident engineer at pre-construction meeting. Really making sure, and that's one thing that, in the interviews today, that's part of what we do at the pre-construction meeting is go through with the contractor, making sure they've read those 1,000 pages of permit documents and really understand what's in them and specifically call attention to those things that are anything out of the norm. So I think with proper, project management, I think John Eric's take was, it could be, it doesn't need to be a big cost item, it's just, making sure it's done properly and that can be accomplished with oversight.
Well, that's the problem with a bid breakdown like that, when you're bidding any project. You see the minutia of every number, and yet at the end of the day,
It's the
it's the
bottom line.
totality of the bid that matters.
Mm.
And they own the documents for that price, and it's real simple, so.
Yeah.
Your resident engineer will watch that line item pretty closely with that work. Other than that, I'm fine with it.
So I guess the question on the agenda is whether we're gonna authorize the CPO to sign the contract. Do you want to give a little bit of background on that? Or?
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we authorize our, CPO to sign the document.
Seconded.
All right, all in favor? All right,
Thank you.
okay.
So can I just make one observation or question? I was through there the other day and this maybe should have been asked months ago and the answer could easily be no. Coming through, I noticed that there are a number of what are probably native shrubs, pretty good, healthy. And it's in an area that's gonna be completely obliterated.
Mhm.
Do we care to try to salvage any of those, and can we salvage any of those? I mean, I didn't spend time to sit down
Where
and,
exactly are they?
they're on the bank, basically, on the West Newbury side.
Upstream or downstream?
The one that most caught my eye, I think it was going through on a bike, and I just noticed it as I rode by, and, I don't remember what it is. I didn't really stop to look, but, it was on the downstream side, on the West Newbury side of the bridge, there are other, I sort of glanced back and, but there's more focused on riding, but,
Good choice.
right, but, I think there are other plants there. I'm just wondering if it makes sense to try to salvage any of them. And this may be more trouble than it's worth, but I just wanted to make the observation. Do we
So
care?
if we wanted to pursue that, what would be the best?
It'd be good to understand the specifics, maybe you could show Butch exactly. I guess is if they're on the riverbank, they're not, or on the reservoir bank, we couldn't touch them without.
I was gonna say, now you're.
Yeah, so,
Well, it'd be
But-
interesting to actually get Clay's take on it.
yeah,
I mean, he-
yeah, I mean,
he
he may
would-
say that
Yeah.
if it's gonna be taken out anyway, and if Butch is able to get in there a day ahead of the contract.
Then where do you put it, is my question?
Well, exactly.
I order conditions, where do you put it?
Yeah.
So it's just.
Yeah, I mean, my point of the thing is that, it's probably there a plant or plants that take to get to the stage you're at 20 or 50 years if there was something else that could be done with them, it would be great.
There are some people that would probably be interested in taking a look at them. If the town feels that this is advisable, I think there's a group
Yeah.
of people that would at least take a look at them, with you. Butchie works with them commonly,
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the challenge would be coordinating with the work.
right, and I understood that when I opened it up, I just, I hate to see something go by the way. It
Do you
doesn't
want to
happen.
mention it to Clay or just? get-
Yeah.
We can take it offline and just, cause I don't wanna,
I don't wanna suck up a lot of anybody's time.
Yeah, no, but if
But
it
it would
can
be
be
great
done,
if
and
Clay
that's,
in his travels in town could take a look.
Mhm,
Um,
yeah.
That'd be great, and he might say, nah, it's not worth it, but he might see something otherwise.
Right. Right, our next item is a review of the proposal from Weston and Sampson for additional water site testing.
Actually, the next one was the MVP, EOL.
Oh, I'm sorry, item D.
So did that come through to all of you? Were you all able to access because this thing, it's so annoying because it doesn't let you export this to PDF. So to do so would have been to manually copy and paste. So I sent you the link on Tuesday. This is the draft expression of interest. There was no other than, it would have taken an hour of staff time to, so I sent you the link, in hopes that you could access it and could give feedback based on this. And then, this is due next Friday, so I wanted to get, input tonight on the draft and, make any changes you might like to see before we submit it to the state next week as part of the EOI process.
Yeah, I think I missed it.
It went out on Tuesday?
Yeah, I too also missed it.
Oh, no.
It's not in the packet, so I did miss this.
Oh, no, yeah, it said in the email for board review in all caps, but I know I sent you a lot of emails, so it's.
18
They're all-
days.
All right, so what's the,
Yeah, maybe we come back to it later in the meeting when, I know we got people waiting on specific items, so,
well,
Okay,
probably-
I found the email, so,
Okay.
sorry,
could we agree to review it before Monday night and talk about it Monday?
oh,
night?
yeah, that's great, yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect.
great.
Sorry about that. Liz, did you come just for that?
Yeah, I'll
Sorry.
just see what you all thought of it, but I
Yeah,
haven't seen it either, so.
okay.
Okay, so, but that's good, we'll send you the link, so it's not gonna shock anyone, it's basically, similar to the article request form, it's probably a little more general, there's a lot of boxes we had to check and different things, so Christina and I met, she had prepared the draft, she and I met on Tuesday, I made one or two minor, tweaks to what she had done, and then that's what I sent around to the board, so we were both pretty annoyed that you couldn't just print the PDF, like, really, but, so anyway, we'll send it to you, Liz, and then on Monday, if you have any changes you wanna make to it, you can give us that direction on Monday, and
Okay,
we have till next Friday to submit this.
okay.
And it's,
Does it make sense to try to do it Monday or for us to just individually get you any comments we have? What would you prefer?
either way, I really don't care.
All right, let's try to do it Monday.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, now we're on to the review of the Weston Sampson proposal. Right, so this is, followed from the, report that Angus mentioned earlier in the meeting, that looked like one of the sites was favorable potentially for, well development. So this is a proposal to put 4 2.5-inch, wells in, to test, do a 4-hour pump test to test capacity as well as the quality of the water that could be pumped from this area. Any questions from?
Yeah, can you go to the second page, Angus? Because we were looking at a document with Groveland and their water issues.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at what they're testing for. I think they've got it wrong. Potassium, iron, and manganese. I think that's supposed to be manganese.
Yes,
So I knew, because
Just to make sure on that.
yeah.
that's another element.
The next thing would be under project assumptions, where they talk about providing access to the drilling rig. I understood that, but in the beginning proposal, it said they may need mats at stream crossings. I would assume they would provide the mats, but that's not clear yet. I think it should be specified, clearing will be done by the town, but any mats at crossings would be their responsibility.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. How are they gonna get the drill rig across?
That's it, like the crossing is said.
Well, the drill rig is not, it's a track device,
Right, I'm
So,
just thinking the crossing, that there's a bridge there, they might be better off coming in from Coffin for that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we did, when we were out there, that day, we talked about both options.
It looks like a snow cap.
Yeah, and,
Helicopter.
there you go.
All right, so I mean, I think that's a fair for them to provide their own maps if they're needed. Any other?
Wendy and I had talked a little bit about, you know, that, just to acknowledge, we would certainly look to be this to be a time and materials, but not to exceed. They proposed it as more of a lump sum, and that's not how we would, you know, that's a change we would make, you know, if the board wanted to go forward.
I think that's their standard proposal.
Yeah.
You know, we changed it the last two
Yeah.
times as well, but.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does it generally come in
Yeah,
under significantly, minimally?
they've all been under, yeah. Although the first one, the study, we revised the scope in order to make sure the cost was, but,
Again, back to this, I'm not trying to, but as far as the access, it should be said, after having a coordination walk with them, because if you have to come in from another direction, you don't want to have cleared one place
right,
already. They have to specify where they want to access it from.
So if they're crossing a stream using mats, does that need to be? Is there a wetlands permitting issue there, or
I
can you?
would think they would have to reach out to the Conservation Commission. Even if they're crossing wetlands with maps.
Right, right.
I would have no, you know, concern whatsoever if the board wanted to, you know, continue this to your next meeting, which is just a week from Monday, November 4th, and that way we can, you know, tweak it a little bit and make sure that we're real clear on all this, you know.
Okay,
And especially if there is, and I have to assume there would be at minimum notice to it, if not a formal permitting process, or at least what's the one where the RDA?
yeah,
You know, if there's something like that, there's, you know, it's gonna take some time for anything to actually get done,
So to
so,
figure out where the crossing would be actually.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what is it? Yeah, so, I mean, almost. We almost have to determine what the route is. Before we move forward, you know, with approving it.
mhm. The other question I had, Angus, is, or Jack, maybe you know this, is whether DEP needs to be notified that we're doing this. I mean, if it's longer than the 4-hour pump test, they would need to, permit that. So that was just a question I had, if that needs to be part of this. Do you know?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's true, yeah. It just as a courtesy anyways.
yeah, yeah. Did you have any input, Jack, that you want to share on this?
Well, I came to the meeting tonight wondering if you were gonna vote on the proposal.
Mhm.
Sounds like you were somewhat prepared to vote on the proposal. And so, as a Board of Water Commissioner, I would like to express my frustration about that and why you should vote on the proposal today. Because unless it's been clarified with conversations with Weston and Sampson, I mean, maybe you have more information than the October 11th report. I don't know what the dialogue was, if you asked them questions, but as a water commissioner, I have questions. And I'm just hoping that either you guys have the knowledge and would resolve them, because if you don't, then I would say, we gotta go back to Weston and Sampson and ask them some questions, because you're about to spend good money on a well-intentioned exploration, but,
Did you have questions in addition to what we just discussed?
yes, I do. I have questions about the Weston and Sampson report,
Mhm,
the conclusions and recommendations made.
mhm.
And in a more broader way, I want to continue to applaud the select board for investing and moving forward with the search for water. I just think that it would be best if the water commission could partner with the select board in a report like this. because I think there are some clarifications that probably Weston and Sampson could make that would either satisfy my questions or explain what the next step would be, you know, in terms of what the proposal was. So if it's okay, I'll just run through a couple of things.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, you know, just in terms of you're looking at that proposal and doing some editing, there's some editing in the October 11th report. Which the water commissioners only got yesterday.
We got it Tuesday.
Okay,
Yeah.
but, okay,
Well, I think the proposal came in Tuesday, the initial
Oh, I'm sorry,
report.
you're talking about
The Weston Sampson, yeah, we've only had one day to provide comments, and you potentially could have voted for this.
but we're not. So-
But you're not, but, you know, we're a partner here, I think. I mean, the Board of Water Commissioners has a history of looking for water, and this is a continuation of that, and if that mission has changed, then it's an abrupt change, but, you know, we've been looking for water for a long time. It'd probably be good to let us weigh in, and I think, not to get ahead of myself, there are some questions here that have to be directed to Weston and Sampson for, you know, for moving forward with the proposal, which I hope we do. So, so there is some editing in the figures, you know, the transect 1A and 1B. If you look at that, the labeling of the center transcript is flipped between the exhibit 1 and exhibit 2. But that's, I mean, that's just something to take a look at later. I just want to make this point that was in the geophysical report. Hager Richter could not determine the depth to bedrock in the location area 1. They said it's greater than 120 feet, but they said their geophysical technique could not determine bedrock or, and I think this is really important, whether there are any transmissive zones in what they label as probable till. I mean, they had a certain zone for unsaturated zone, then saturated zone, and then something they labeled probable till, and it had no bedrock. I mean, they explained in the report that they were assuming, based on all of the different signals that they got, where the bedrock was, and it was greater than 120 feet. But they also said in their disclaimer that we're making no claims that there aren't transmissive zones in the glacial till. And there could very well be, there could be a gusher of sand and gravel that's there that from 48 feet, you know, at the bottom of this saturated zone to somewhere at 120 feet, we know absolutely nothing. And I just think there's an opportunity to ask them about that, to get some feedback, because we might change the design of the monitoring wells for the pump test. But I'll get to that in a second. Again, this is a question for Weston and Sampson. They've described this permeable till and where it begins based on the energy values, right, from the seismic refraction. But the zone above that they call unsaturated and saturated. But there's no description of what kind of soil materials those are, right? Is it not glacial till? And if it's not glacial till, what is it? I mean, I know there's a difference in signal, so it is probably a different stratification, but you know, what is that? What would they characterize it? Is it sand and gravel? Is it sand? I mean, I just think that that's a clarification that, if for nothing more for prosperity, it would be good to have.
I think once they put the wells in, they'll be able to say that for sure.
Oh,
This is an indicator, the seismic analysis.
I get that. Yeah, I definitely get that. It's just a subtle little point, but the glacial till is in the saturated zone. I mean, it's not a not saturated zone, it's water saturated, right? So, I mean, it's just a picky little edit, but, you know, saturated zone means there's water. Glacial till means it's soil, you know, there's water there too. And, you know, it just begs the question again, what's in the saturated zone? What's the soil material? What's your best guess? What are we looking for when we do the warrants, right? And then, I guess since you guys are in the, reviewing the proposal stage and you need to get back to Weston and Sampson, I would ask the question, why are the three test pump wells within a 50-foot radius of the center transect? I mean, if you're gonna put all your eggs in one basket for those 4-hour pump wells, what's the best well for the pump in that particular area? Or, you know, is there a wider network? Why isn't there a wider network? You know, that's just, it's a curiosity to me. It's like, maybe there's some obvious geophysical, hydrogeological reason, but to me, it seems, you know, at least tell us that, so we are more informed when they're doing the test.
I think they said within the report that they're doing it where the potential for the actual wells would be. They're mimicking that scenario, so that's why they're all there. You could spread them out, but it could become useless.
Yeah, but I mean, I can get, we can get back to that in a second. But I mean, it's 150, it's several hundred feet in either direction, and, you know, that's one part of the, you know, that potential high yielding aquifer that they're looking at, you know, and for the limited amount of information that the geophysical report provides, it still seems that you're really grouping it to one location. And, but Chris, like you said, maybe there's a well, experienced reason why that's the case, and that, you know, they'll discount that for this reason. It's just something that I would be curious about, okay?
If the aquifer has a very high recharge rate, there's no limit, there's no reason that you couldn't have wellheads close together. So it's really all a matter of the recharge of that aquifer.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, I mean, so one of the things with this proposal that either you guys can ask them or we would be invited to ask them would be, we're looking in this spot, and if this test well doesn't yield, we're moving on to somewhere else, right?
Right, that's the plan. We'll go back and do
So
something.
then why are we not looking at, why are we only putting the well into 48 feet when there's this gray area where we don't know anything about the glacial geology from 48 feet to 120? I mean, if you hit a gusher, you know, that the glacial till can be almost like an aquifer barrier to a lower aquifer that's in this glacial deposits. I mean, why is that the case? We're along a river, there's gonna be different lenses of different types of materials that are there. Why are we like gonna pack up our bags after this test? Maybe they can just explain why there's no possible reason why there'd be a transmissive zone at 70 feet. Because Hagen and Richter, they said, we're not making that call,
Right.
right? And so, let's see. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. Again, you know, the bottom line is, I think we're very thankful the select board is moving in this direction and providing resources to look at that. I do think that, you know, maybe in retrospect, in moving forward, when Weston Sampson or whoever has a draft report before it becomes a final report, we'd have a chance to take a look at it. I don't even know if you guys took a look at a draft report.
No, we didn't.
But, you know, before it's ready for prime time, if there are some of these revisions or updates or clarifications, you know, it would resolve and kind of chart our course with much more certainty when we're looking at different places for water. I mean, I'm just hoping that, you know, when we invest in like wetland permits and maybe DEP permits, that, you know, we leave no stone unturned, you know, that's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Okay.
So
Well,
anyways, I'm gonna talk to the other water commissioners at our next meeting about this, and again, you know, I can't wait for you guys to go ahead and do the pump test, and anxious for the results, you know. But who knows, maybe we'll find that, you know, if we popped a couple different wells at different depths here, we wouldn't have to look any further,
Right.
you know, but again, maybe Weston Sampson could answer that question and resolve it that way.
Okay, so our next meeting is the 4th. Are you meeting before that?
No, we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not scheduled to.
I mean, our intent is to move forward with this, so I would ask that if you want to have input as a board, that you could try to meet before then and provide that. I mean, I'll follow up with Weston and Sampson on these questions and
Okay.
and email that to you.
All right, yeah, I think that's fine,
Okay.
and I'll see what the board's up to.
With the exception of the conservation issue, I would be prepared to vote this tonight.
Yeah.
So, but to the bigger picture, I mean, a lot of the things you said, I understand about this much of them, because I'm not a water guy. But what we did, we hired the engineer to look at every parcel in town, you know this.
Yeah.
And study them. They looked at restrictions on the properties, the soils and everything else. And they've gone down the path, they found the parcel, they located, so all we can do is depend on their expertise and what they've shown us. And I would get very leery of questioning or backing away from any of this. And hopefully we find water, we might not, but this, we felt was the most cost-effective and efficient way to zero in on a well, rather than saying, well, let's try over here, or let's drill on this guy's property, or things like that. And this was the #1 parcel. If this doesn't pan out, we have 2, 3, 4, 5. You've seen, I believe you've seen the list, there's like 10 of them. It'd be nice to think you strike it on the first one, but we don't know. But generally, I have to defer to what they're saying. They're the experts. They, you know, I have no background in this whatsoever. So, you know, if you have a specific question, yes, but to sit, you know.
No, I have specific questions, I've shared them with you, you know, and maybe they could nip them right in the bud, and I hope, you know.
Jack, so, you know, trying to read into, you know, your question, or you're wondering about what's below 48 feet and above 150 feet, or wherever they surmise bedrock is. Do you, are you suggesting that maybe it would make sense for one hole to be much deeper? One of the 3 holes that they'll be pumping from, to be much deeper to characterize the material?
I mean, I would defer to a hydrogeologist.
Yeah.
However, you know, if you don't know what's from 48 feet to 100 something feet, you know, one monitoring well, you know, that doesn't characterize, you know, an aquifer, but, you know, there might be some interest in figuring out, you know, if there are other stratified layers there. So you could do your pump test for the shallow aquifer or the shallow part of the aquifer, but if something is below the till, maybe you're not doing a pump test, but maybe you have some information that tells you, maybe we want to come back and do a pump test, or it's money well spent to, you know that you don't have to come back. That, or maybe that you don't have to go to location 2 through 10, you know, maybe you just, you put this one to bed, but
Yeah.
it just seems like, you know, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, okay, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying, I think it makes sense to ask the people who do it for a living to explain their reasoning.
Absolutely.
Interesting question.
So Wendy, I took detailed notes as Jack was talking, so
Yeah.
I'll get those to you and you
Okay.
can reconcile with your notes and make sure that we get all those, over to Weston Stands.
Sounds good. Okay, item F, request to consider determination and consent for joint representation for West Newbury and other municipalities that are part of this proposed Merrimack Valley Public Health Alliance. So,
Just before you really jump into this, I do want to just let you know, in addition to the, limited information I put in the packet, I have tons and tons of documents on this, including, we got a whole bunch of materials on Tuesday from the mayor's office in Amesbury in response to the request we made. And, we had also, when this came in last week, Rebecca had contacted the State Department of Public Health to get the original grant application. They sent her, treated it as a public records request, and they sent her an email with lots of attachments. I haven't even glanced at those. She hasn't even, so tonight, all that's before you is the request for legal, representation, but I just want to be specific that if and when you dig into this substantively, there is a ton of information, and it's gonna take us hours just to like collate what we have, because there's so much information.
so is it premature to vote on authorizing KP to represent us if we don't even know if we're gonna move forward with this?
I mean, you're the board, so obviously that's your
I guess my,
decision to make,
I'm
but
looking at the larger picture here, and I don't feel that the Board of Health or this consortium has demonstrated the need, for West Newbury to participate. Salisbury has dropped out, and the report dropped out 2 weeks
I don't know
ago.
why Newbury was dropped out.
Yeah, so I don't know, I mean, it's been so hard to get just the attachments and the information about.
and we asked for those attachments last December. I got them last week.
Yeah, so it.
So, yeah, it's not clear to me what, I don't understand what it's about. I don't know what we get at.
So what we
Thank
get.
you.
or what
I
we
read
get
it.
Is a full-time staff person to administer this grant and this consortium to Amesbury. The idea is to have a regional, health collaborative, like when we had the COVID, vaccines, they ran the clinics and everything. I think that's what it's modeled after. But, I don't see any compelling reason that we need it. I don't know if it's worth asking the health agent or the Board of Health to explain to us why West Newbury needs to be involved in this.
That seems like a good place to start,
Yeah.
because it'll be essential for the next pandemic, right?
Well, no, but this contract was like 25 years too, don't forget it.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
And you can't exit without both boards' agreement. I have a few pages of notes on my review of this going back to last winter. They're all handwritten. I haven't even typed them up yet, but last winter I spent, I made a really good faith effort to go through this, and it just became a lot. And then, and the board had provided direction that it really wasn't a priority, so I kind of shifted gears, and it wasn't until we got this letter that came in on a Tuesday, and the very next day we got an email follow-up from KP, and I was like, that's weird, because normally we ask for their service, not the other, not them pressing us on timeline. So I spent at least half of my workday last Thursday working on this, so it just goes to show, like, things come up and they like totally throw us off what we're trying to get done, and it's very frustrating. So I would think that having the Board of Health or the health agent present why you should consider this, and I did, I mentioned a while back, because I know you had gone to one health meeting where they.
Right, where apparently they said I was now an expert.
Yeah, so I
went, and there was a bunch of other stuff. I
It all
didn't go
takes
with that.
one meeting.
Right.
So I
can't waste scratching my head.
to say like, and he said, oh, Rick knows everything. I'm like, so I told Rick, I'm told you know everything.
Enlighten us, Rick.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just one of these cases where somebody pursued a grant and then they got it, and now they're trying to fulfill the obligation.
Well, one thing that I couldn't help note was the date of, and I know you don't have all these materials, although some of them back when I first brought this to your attention last December or January may have been in there, because at that time, I think I just shared everything I had as of that time. But the date of the letter that I have on file from Department of Public Health to Amesbury, notifying them they were awarded the grant, was May 4th. The date that I was asked and Bob James was asked to sign to this letter of intent was 2 to 3 weeks later than that. So that's part of why I was interested in getting the grant, is to understand what representations were made as to West Newbury's participation. You know, if the grant was awarded May 4th of 2023, presumably the application went in months prior. I was first brought to my attention on like the 3rd week of May 2024, and I remember it was dropped off. It wasn't emailed, so I don't have a real clear paper trail, but it was dropped off, and I contacted Paul, said, "What's this all about?" He said, "You gotta sign it, you gotta sign it, the city needs it." And I'm like, and in retrospect, I wish I hadn't signed it. Normally, I don't sign
But
anything.
that
without
distills it
permission
down
before,
because
but-
somebody filed a grant representing that we were interested, and we have no idea, they should have put the horse before the cart, which they
Yeah.
have neglected to do, so that's why I'm confused about it.
I'm very confused about it, and I've put in big chunks of time, including last Thursday on when I had a lot of other stuff I had on my list to get done that day, and because of someone else's pressing us on urgency, you know, I had to kind of drop some things. And,
Well, I would recommend we hold off on the KP thing, if that makes sense, until,
I would agree.
yeah.
all right, so I can, invite, you know, Board of Health,
It'd be good if
Yeah.
the health agent could, I mean, he's the
Yeah.
one that's most directly involved in
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
Is there any way to prevent this from becoming a huge time sink for you in the next?
I don't think so.
week?
I don't think so, because I think it just, it's, but.
Well, can we hold off on any time investment until we decide we wanna go forward? I mean, I would just be looking to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't intend to do anything other than getting scheduled. I just know that in and of itself will probably generate some amount of, meetings of like, anyway, I won't speculate how those will go, but.
Let's see, next item, review and confirm motions for special town meeting. Follow up on that.
So that was put on kind of preemptively. We
Okay.
posted this meeting obviously before Tuesday night in the event that there were open questions coming out of Tuesday night. The only, open item was on the, rescinding the borrowing authorization. We did confirm with, Hilltop Securities and Bond Counsel that they're comfortable with language that basically says to rescind the amount that was authorized but not yet issued, that we do not need to specify the dollar amount. So we'll, update, you might have already updated the formal motion, and I haven't even looked at it, it's been very busy, so. But anyway, that was the only loose end, that was resolved.
We're gonna invite Tim as well.
Yeah, Tim okayed that as well by email, so, so we'll send out the final motions tomorrow, and, we'll be in great shape for Monday night.
Okay.
Just here to,
He likes to hang out with us every.
All right.
you know, periodically.
You picked a good one.
Yeah.
And a bit on tonight's agenda.
So one thought I had was, sending an email to all the board and committees from the select board email address, just saying we need a quorum and finding.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
I was gonna send out something reminding if they wanted to, do a town report, so I could add that on instead if you'd like.
I think you gotta both do it,
No.
you do yours and you do
Yeah.
yours, you gotta
Two
start
different
beating out
things.
people to get them there.
Yeah.
Yeah, two different things.
Okay, great. All right, next item is Break Hill Terrace, advice from town council and plan to engage residents going forward. Yes, Jen, kind of spoke to this at the top of the meeting.
By the way, they're already out there doing it.
But that was the water,
Right,
that's,
that's what I'm saying.
that's different, so yeah. So what happened, as you know, this kind of first, was kind of put on the table because of the reconstruction of that house, and, so the direction that the water department had provided that home builder was that they needed to tie their line all the way back down to Main Street, not into the line within Break Hill Terrace. So Mark, was on site for that work on Monday, solely for the purpose of observation and making sure the tie-in was done correctly.
They were out there yesterday with trucks, on the department.
But were they observing or actually?
I stopped to see, I saw 2 trucks. out
My
there.
understanding is they're really there to observe and make
Okay.
sure the
I'm just
time
saying.
is proper. So, because it's not, there is no record that that's ever been accepted as, water. We know about the road, but in addition to that, there's no record in the water department that they've ever accepted that line as public.
So then our next step is to schedule a meeting with the residents to bring them up to speed on what's happening, and you're looking for direction from the board as to whether we kind of continue to service the road for the winter as we have in the past until, so how does that sound to both of you?
I thought we already agreed to that before.
I'm not sure we did. Maybe. We talked about it, but
I think we said it would be a little abrupt to say this year it's not going to happen.
Okay, that's my feeling. Yeah.
I thought we'd agreed to it, whether we took a vote or just
Yeah.
consensus.
We need a vote on this, or do we?
No, I think direction is fine.
I just didn't remember. that.
Yeah, my thought, I just, cause obviously when it was talked about, so I just wanted to make sure with the,
Well, you said the conversation, they would have to get a plow person in place this year and all, and we said, yeah, let's hold on, we
Yeah.
were gonna have a meeting with them, so.
right, yeah,
I'm
so
very
I think,
comfortable with that.
yeah, good, okay, that's kind of would be my recommendation is that we then, look into what would be, the process if the town was, interested in considering accepting it as public infrastructure, what type of, evaluation would you, normally, as you know, with a subdivision road, you would get an as-built that's stamped by an engineer, and you would know depth of subgrade, you would know depth of pavement, you would know all of that. So I don't know whether, I would look for direction from the board, not necessarily tonight, but at a future meeting, maybe on what type of, information would you look to in considering whether you wanted to bring it forward with a recommendation for public acceptance. Even if you wanted to do it sight unseen, there are still things that need to be done, like a street acceptance plan, different legal documents that need to be drafted.
None of that was done previously with the previous subdivision.
No, so,
And how we would pay for
how
that.
we would pay for that, yeah, so. And it should, we should all remind ourselves, even though it is a private way where the town does own the land on one side of it, the town, does own half of it, so it's a, kind of a complicated situation.
So what would be our overall timeline? Maybe meet with the residents by the end of the year?
Yeah, I think sooner than later, obviously, Jen's on here tonight, and there's only a couple of houses, so I think, we could, as soon as we can get a conversation scheduled, I can't see why that couldn't happen in November.
Okay,
And then, and just kind of make sure everyone understands the situation and why this is now on the table.
mhm,
It does, we did some research on it, that I think we talked about, with, the town meeting article from roughly 2005. That finance committee booklet clearly contemplated some follow-up steps that it certainly appears were never taken.
mhm.
So that's part of what we'd like time to do a little more digging to see, was there discussion on subsequent board agendas, or did that just kind of fall off the table after the town, voted to expend the $5,000 to do some amount of work back in 2005 or so. But the FinCom booklet clearly states it's not a public way, everyone knew that. So we'd like to really dig in and see where that fell off the table
Mhm.
18 years ago.
So really, we'd be looking at an article in Springtown meeting to fund this? I mean, I don't know. where-
Potentially, depending on the kind of, we don't have that kind of money just
Right.
rattling around in the budget, because I think when you're dealing with as-bills and legal, never mind if you want to do inspection, which, the analogy I would use is, in fact, I mentioned this to Jim earlier today. When my wife and I bought our house a couple of years ago, we waived an inspection because it's a seller's market and you kind of have to do that in that market. But we knew that that's like not normally what you do. Would the town accept ownership of a piece of infrastructure, essentially waiving inspection? Like you'd think you'd do some amount of due diligence to see what you're accepting, what condition it's in and how was it built and,
I would question who owns the cost. Might not be the town. I mean,
Yeah.
and the other subdivision, it's not the town. So,
We've also, in the past, when people have inquired how to make a road public as opposed to it being private, have informed them that they would be expected to bring it up to the town standards.
mhm.
So, you know, you have that too. I mean, it's just in fairness to everybody, you know, you want some consistency in the answer, so.
Yeah, this is a little, you know, I can think of one example that fits what you just referred or suggested, but, this is different in that the town
Oh, sure.
owns one side.
Yeah, so there's,
Yeah,
right, but on the other hand, that may mean that the town for its share would still be under that same constraint.
right,
You know, a good road is a good road. for a reason.
yeah.
that conversation is curious about the town on one side. They own frontage on one side, but, and I know legal is saying they may own to the center of the road.
Right.
But they cut out that parcel, they had a piece of land, they put in 3 houses, the road just happens to be on the outside. The town was not a party to that agreement, they did at a certain point buy the Craven property, which abuts it. So it's a very squishy area as to,
It's this, what derelict fee statute, I think is what was referenced in the opinion. If the, right of way is not, specifically conveyed that the owners on each side own, but it actually says in the opinion, I think it says it's like a rebuttable
Yeah.
presumption. that
because the
there's-
town didn't purchase to the center line, they purchased to the
Correct.
border of the roadway, so.
Correct.
To sit there and now say we own to the center line of an obligation, I'm not sure
Right, it's arguable.
I think it's
I
very,
just gave you the term, arguable.
if somebody cut out a piece of land.
Rebuttable.
Well,
The road was fully on their land, unfortunately, it happened to be right on the border. If it was in 1 inch, the town has no frontage, no obligation.
That's correct.
But it's a curiosity as to where they're located. I said we just deed them 1 inch of property along the side of the road.
This will be fun.
All right,
Isn't it always?
so, all right, the plan is we'll schedule something with and there's 3 houses? Are we including
There's-
the new house?
I think, yeah, and then the third house
The third house
has
is-
frontage on Main Street.
Yeah.
Its driveway is on Break Hill Terrace, but
Yeah, but the
it's,
frontage isn't determined by us too.
right,
Wow.
but the driveway is on Break Hill, so I think of it as 3 houses. No,
Yeah, so the other question of where their water line comes in.
but the acceptance of water infrastructure is totally separate
Yeah,
from the
right.
acceptance of a street.
Okay. Jen, did you want to add anything or ask any questions before we move on?
Hi, no, I want to wait until you guys get your stuff together and we'll meet and talk. I definitely have some thoughts. When we
Okay.
bought the house back in 1988, they told us it was privately owned but publicly maintained. So I don't know what that means, but that's what we were told. So we'll talk more. More to be
Okay,
said.
sounds good.
Thank
Yeah,
you, guys.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
bye-bye.
And
All right.
Angus, regarding, regarding you referenced the water infrastructure, so the pipe, the new line that was put in this week, that's copper line and it's just servicing one house, or is that run?
That's my understanding,
Okay,
yeah,
And that was installed by the developer.
private developer.
Yeah, okay.
Supply water to a house is not that expensive, if, you know, I mean, so. I wouldn't worry so much about the water.
I'm just trying to get a handle on it, you know, because there's a house above it, I have no idea what the status is of their water line.
Not
I'm not trying to
get
create,
a for it.
yeah.
All right, we move on to item I. I, employee request to extend unused FY 24 vacation time. So we have 2 requests here.
Well, the first one is very changed, we just started taking off.
So this, the week that he's off now, this is an addition.
Let's see, I have a
I think
report.
it said Brian was taking time off.
He is.
Yeah, yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that's what's referenced here and that what's.
But we
So-
deduct 40 off of the 56.
Let's see, I have the latest in my inbox, so let me,
He's off fully this week, cause he was in a couple days. this week so far. So I think he took off a couple of it, I don't know if he took off the whole week, kind of those is long days. He fixed my light down at the, annex, so he was in Monday at least.
He was trying to say his lights were out.
I got complaints, it was too dark to road down there.
So the report I got from Kim on Monday showed Brian with 80 hours remaining. So I believe that it seems that the 56 reflects
That's
what he
24,
intended to
the
take.
24, it's 3
Correct.
days,
Yeah.
3-hour days.
Yeah,
Any separate
That's a lot.
motions?
What's that?
Are we gonna have separate motions or one motion for both?
I think we should have separate.
All three, not both, please.
Huh?
yeah, because I'm in there. Mine was a little of
You're assuming we're gonna accept that one.
well, I didn't write it up.
I was
as-
just looking at the
but yeah, it's, so.
Two of the requests say the end of November and one says the end of December. I think we should be consistent. Instead of granting one to the end of December and the other.
That's his request. My comment is if you tell him, Brian, that he's gotta go to the end of December, there's stuff to be done, he's gonna say, okay, see you later, I'm taking time off, it's not gonna get done.
Well, I mean, we gotta draw a line somewhere.
I think you extended, which,
And that would make them all December rather than November, so take the other.
Yeah, Jim's got a good point. I think that the prior requests were end of December. I think for Butch and
Yeah.
John's.
My concern, I say this every year, is just that, so now we've taken 3 months out of, next year's vacation, so now all of vacations will be crammed into 9 months. It's just at some point, I don't know, how do we get ahead of this?
You probably never will.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I'd love to put the policy on the table, which you've heard me say before, it's just something we can never find time for, but, I think Jenny and I feel that the purpose of the policy, really from a financial standpoint, is to minimize the town's,
Liability.
liability at audit. So if prior year vacation carried forward as late as June 30th of the subsequent year, but fell off the books, it would, that addresses the issue of the financial liability. That does create the potential that when people separate from service, that they get significant payouts because they've potentially got a, bigger balance of accrued vacation. So it's not a simple policy, and we've done a fair amount of research on how other towns handle it. There's no consistency. Some, it's a hard stop. Some, it's like ours with, a specified period of time. Some it's the full year. Some have no limit. Some you don't even accrue vacation in your first year. You don't even begin accruing until you've been in a job 52 weeks. So I don't know, Jonathan, do you have how does the school handle that for vacation carry?
Yeah, so I mean, for like the teacher's contract, it really doesn't apply, but for.
Why, because they don't get vacation?
No, I just mean that it's like, it's, like for folks like myself who have an individual contract, you're allowed to carry 5 days over. But you have to then use those within the next year, so, it puts a time frame on it, it's only 5. And you can bring it to the next year, and if you don't use it, it goes away.
And the teachers is that they can't carry it over at all?
Yes, it's sick time is the only thing that carries.
Sick time carries over, yeah.
Yeah, they don't really have, they have sick time and personal days.
Okay.
And I think you can carry a personal day over if it's unused,
A personal day.
a personal day.
I mean, I think the intent should be to have people use the vacation days, that's what you
Yeah.
have to do,
Definitely.
so.
Yeah.
That's.
You never, like Angus said, you never want to be in a position of finding out that someone has 3 years of vacation.
Oh, yeah.
You have to pay them because now all of a sudden your salary.
We had that for a couple of positions at my prior job where
Yeah.
people could carry indefinitely.
It's atrocious.
No, but just for the employee's benefit, they should be taking the
There
time
30 years.
Yeah, I agree.
He was,
I don't have to encourage that.
off.
Okay, everyone, good to see you all. Look
Oh,
forward
was that a
to,
boring?
we look forward to hosting you guys next week.
that's gonna be great.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Take care.
Yeah, that's what one is trying to accomplish.
See, well,
You're all in
make a
agreement.
motion.
Well, we've already approved 2. Yeah, we have the same conversation every year.
Well, then if you're gonna say it, then you gotta make a statement that we're not gonna continue this too.
You've said that before.
Yeah.
Well, I would do, this is
Now-
never new to me, so.
Are you sure we said December? for the prior two requests?
I thought we had something, it was gonna be taken off.
That's what I think I remember.
Okay, all right, I just didn't recall.
Because I mean, that's historically, that's what we've done in previous years. We've
Yeah.
generally got to the end of
That,
December.
that was,
And
I know that was the request.
Okay, well, we.
Yeah, I've got, the request right up in front of me from the last packet that was sent.
And I don't remember, somebody like Brian, the bulk of his work probably hits in normal weather, right? He was out doing the police station thing. So he can't use his vacation time. It's kind of unfair to say,
I don't know that that's, I mean, Jenny's time comes during, audit time, I don't think anybody's vacation is more important than anybody else's.
if it's sensitive to the climate and the weather, yes, it is. Same with Butch, I would say, during the summer when he's out doing roads and things like that, he probably can't take a day off. So towards the end of the year, he wants to carry it over and take it off in November, December, that would make sense. So,
Until it snows.
Yeah,
That'll be quiet.
all right, so do you expect to have any more requests?
So I've been corresponding with Kim on that, and, she has not, and this is as of this afternoon, she's not personally received any inquiries on requesting extension, through conversations and looking at leave calendar. She lists, 1, 2, 3, roughly 10 employees, that have or will be taking their time by the end of the day, or by the end of next week. So it seems like everybody's aware of it, and those that, were concerned that they couldn't use it have contacted us. But as you know, we didn't put out a call for
Right.
extension request because the policy doesn't formally authorize that in the first place.
Okay, does somebody want to make motions?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve. Are we only addressing one at a time, or?
That's what they said at the time.
I mean, I guess we could do them all, if they're all gonna have the same,
They're all expired, isn't it?
so we just reference the request, the individual request.
I would just note in my request, I penciled in next Tuesday off. Since that time, I became
Taking it off.
aware of, there's a financial forecasting training that I was just received in Rob. It's a financial forecasting training, DOR, that they emailed me on Tuesday to say, would me and Jenny like to go to half-day workshops in Worcester this Tuesday, and then again the third week in November. And so after some hemming and hawing, we decided, yeah, we will go. So Tuesday, I'm not gonna be on vacation, I'm gonna be in Worcester,
So how many
Which day are you
hours?
going with?
Tuesday.
Election day, no, the next Tuesday.
This coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I had penciled in that I was gonna use 27 hours next week, the most I'll use is 18.
All right, so then how many do you want to carry over?
Uh,
We're voting on them.
I would say 30, I had penciled in 20, but I would say 30 is a better number.
We'll do them one at a time, or I'll make a motion one at a time. So first one is, for Brian Richard, I would move that we, allow carryover of 56 hours of vacation time that must be used before, the end of December.
Second, I can ask a question.
Yeah.
Do you want to somehow make a statement so that this doesn't keep happening somehow?
But we do that every year.
Maybe
fine,
send out
yes.
less.
I'm doing it.
Hey, Chris, you sort of outlined what I see as, basic problem, which is that, two of these requests, one right now, the two of the requests we received were for people who are, sort of, supervisory positions that all their work, or the majority of their work, has to be accomplished during a certain time of the year. So they're going full tilt during the warm months. And so, there's a basic problem there with their being able to take their vacation.
But you don't only have to take vacation in the summer. I mean, if they planned ahead, they would take it in March or, right?
Angus, does the sick and vacation stuff, that stand for a little bit of more looking around and seeing how other people handle.
Yeah,
it.
We've done a lot.
Okay, so
And the problem I would say is at a staff level, really, with me and Jenny, we have a lot of raw material. There's no trends, there's like, so, you know, if we had a few hours to focus on this, we could, but we don't, you know, we know what's on our list, like every single day. I mean, this has been on my list for 6 years, and like, it's just one of the things that keeps getting pushed off because of regional health agreement or whatever. You know, we just are constantly pushed
Like you say, you'll find an example, it's done every way under the sun.
every way
So-
under the sun.
so the
Yeah,
issue
yeah,
then-
we have a whole
The
Excel
issue then
spreadsheet,
becomes
like,
what might work best for us under our circumstances.
yeah.
What you're saying is, it's difficult to find the time to collate that and then propose it.
Correct, in the context of, I mean, even on financial policies, I have 6 or 7 other financial
Yeah.
policies
Yeah.
that, you know, we just can't find.
So this is a
for.
personnel policy, correct?
Correct, yeah,
So this would require notice and.
correct. Yeah, that's the other thing is amending the personnel policy. There's certain
Right.
notice requirements that requires the unanimous vote from the board. It's just,
Well, you don't have to amend the policy, just.
no, you
have to
don't,
entertain
but
the
to really fix it it's just a process.
Yeah,
It's
no,
gonna
I,
take
yeah.
Dozens of hours of time.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and do you have a sense or an inkling that there's a solution out there that works?
Well, I mean, that's kind of why I prefaced by saying, if the intent of the policy in the first place was to limit the town's financial exposure, you know, for audit, something as late as the end of the next fiscal year solves that problem. It creates a different problem, which is you're gonna then have larger balances and more potential that a separation of service, you're gonna have, you know, payout of, you know, so I think if, you know, something like a hard line on just it's absolutely gotta be used, I think if that was, you know, somehow implemented in a way that didn't unduly squeeze people who are already carrying balances, like, you know, but yeah, it's just, there's a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah, there is a lot of nuance to it.
Yeah.
And I just think that you can't just look at vacation without looking at the whole. And you may not want to take a stance right now until you've been able to figure out something that maybe is a better alternative than what we're facing right now, that's all.
Mhm.
That's all.
All right,
So Wendy, so there, you know, there's a motion, it's been seconded, but along the lines of discussion, so. I mean, it sounds like, you know, at some point you feel like we just need to say, that's life. You know, I can understand that, so we do need to say that this time, and you know, with each agreement for the extension, you know, the approval of that would include a letter saying that we're not doing any more, but then that needs to be broadly distributed to all town staff.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, but I would like to also look at the policy and see if there's a way, because I do want people to take their vacation.
Right,
That's part of
right,
their
right, so-
quality. Yeah. Any further discussion on the request for Brian's time? So you would this be in addition to your motion to also send a letter? Did you make a motion, Chris?
No, Rick did.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it at this point, because you could address it overall, not just one individual.
right,
Well, I was
And we will-
thinking, but, I mean, we can still follow up with a letter to the other two. It's only been 2 weeks.
I mean, I think all town employees gotta get to.
yeah, it has to be all, because next year could be,
Yeah.
you know, 4 other people, 4 different people. Could be.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anything further?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
I just want to kind of ask a question on the next one. Are we shooting ourselves in the foot here? By approving carry over?
I would suggest not, because I think this shows that this applies
There's a formal
for
policy.
union, non-union, that to carry forward, you have to request it, it's got to be voted.
Okay,
So I think actually I see it the opposite way.
okay, good.
My only question on that is he's got days versus hours. I don't know if his day is different.
It is.
I would appreciate in the future, I think they should show hours in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, maybe we need to compare.
So it would be, 7.5 hours, so it'd be 15, or, yeah, so, yeah, it'd be 15 hours is what 2 days would translate to.
Right.
Make a motion to approve the carryover of 15 hours for Rich Printer.
Until,
December, we said all 3 of these, sorry.
I just, you're doing separate motions now.
Yep,
separate,
I
okay.
appreciate it.
Yeah, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And our fearless leader,
Make a motion, we approve carryover 30 hours for Angus Jennings to the end of December.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, so,
We had to, you were here in the room.
Chris, you wanna take a crack at drafting the letter?
No. I don't know the full magnitude of the issue.
I think just laying out the expectation that, or the history
Actually, can we
that.
just back up for a second? Chris said 30 hours,
Yeah,
and this is the request here for. Yeah.
but remember, because now.
Oh,
Tuesday,
that's right, I'm
I think
sorry,
Tuesday.
yeah, sorry, short memory apparently, Sage. I can say it myself.
All right, Chris, was that a no?
I don't think I have enough to put it together, let's put it that way.
All right.
I thought I could, I would, I wouldn't mind, but.
All right, I'll draft something and we'll look at it at the next meeting. I think it should come from the board, Angus, is that
Sure.
appropriate if we're approving the?
Yeah, and I think it's probably good to, I can obviously, chip in my 2 cents
Yeah.
when there's a draft, but I think it's probably good to point out that there is no specific provision in the personnel policy that even allows for an extension. It's something that's been, a practice, and that my office is basically charged with implementing the policies as written. So it's been brought to the board in the context of, I have no authority to deviate from those policies without the board's, approval, but I think it's good to let people know there's not, in fact, a provision for that. And this board and prior boards have done this in hopes of, and you value people being able to take vacation, all of those things that you've said in these discussions. And that year after year, it's, the intent is that it doesn't happen and then it just keeps happening. So I think there's a way to write it that basically, because you're not taking back anything that's in there, it's not in there at all.
Yeah,
The policy is unambiguous.
Ask them to use their vacation, that's all.
Right.
But there's that history that I could put that into legs, so I'm not that familiar with it. So,
Okay.
I mean, that, what you said was good, but you probably know way more.
okay. Select board minutes.
September 26, 2024.
I'll second let Wendy make her revision.
Right.
I just have a few minor ones. Under item A. the
No.
Article 3, the right to farm bylaw, there's a parentheses in the third sentence that I just am not following. Lack of public input on proposed bylaw, parentheses, though a revised bylaw had been given to the select board since the initial hearing on September 16th. Anybody, does that make sense to?
They did revise it at one point, yeah.
I think,
You don't need it.
yeah. It's confusing. On the next page, Article 5.
While you're on that sentence, it wasn't actually a hearing, so I'd say it's replace hearing with meeting. Cause it wasn't like
Yeah, we're gonna
Right.
strike that whole parentheses.
oh, you're gonna strike that
Yeah.
parenthetical piece,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought you meant to strike the parentheses.
All right, Article 5, it's 3,900, not 4,500.
Sorry, what was it? correct?
But at the time that it went to
At the
the,
time.
at the time it went to the committee, it was still in the, I think it was still in the article at 4,500.
Yeah.
I think it was just a couple of nights ago.
Yeah, literally changed it.
Literally,
No, but the funding application was 3,900, so. It said this was already acted on by the committee and board.
the first
I'm
time,
trying to figure out the timing of when this meeting was.
the first time 3,900 was mentioned at the, when we, Tuesday.
Well, but that was a mistake though, because the funding application itself was for 3,900 and that somehow didn't get added into this. But didn't we vote to approve the CPC things before it went to the CPC?
Yeah, and I think at that point it was saying.
Yeah, the eligibility was 4,500. So you think this was before we had the funding application? Okay, great.
You could maybe add like something in brackets to say, no, subsequent to this, the application was reduced or
Okay.
something, because I think the minutes are accurate.
Okay,
But in the interest of not having a confusing
Two numbers,
record, you
yeah.
could just put brackets that,
Use the
Funding
parentheses we left over from before.
all right, under Article 8, beginning of third sentence, read out the DPW if pursuing. Should that be like the highway superintendent or
I'm sorry, which section?
Article 8? I think that was Christine that I was asking the question of. Is her title still DPW projects?
It's actually more, it's just, projects and programs manager.
Okay, so just replace DPW with that? Right, and Article 10, like towards the middle, on alternatives, analysis and quotes. I would say instead of to approach, I would say to allow the town to understand solutions or to identify solutions. Approach doesn't seem like the right word there. I would just say to understand possible solutions and take out what would be most appropriate. Okay. And then 2 sentences after that, I don't think we should say, I'm not sure she said that this is, geared towards eventually elevating the road. Is that accurate, right? I think that presumes.
She might have qualified, I think she might have made reference to elevating the road, but it was
Those are
probably,
the simple type of things they were considering.
right, yeah, I think it was qualified by something like elevating the road. I don't know exactly how it was, but
Okay.
I don't think she would have explicitly said elevating the
That's the
road,
thing,
but that was,
yeah.
yeah.
Could we strike that and just say value for the town, for any future shoreline stabilization approach? Does that work, Rick?
Wait, say that again, please.
Strike for eventually elevating the road, just say, an incredible value for the town to understand future shoreline stabilization approaches.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
I mean, elevating the road is just an example of what.
I
needs to be
understand
done,
that, I
yeah.
just feel like if that's the only one you put in there, that's what people are gonna.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if.
Yeah.
Article 12, is it ash tree removal? We talked about this the other night.
It is.
Yeah, tree removal. I
Okay.
don't know why there's any confusion.
Well, because the.
The warrant, the article.
I just don't understand why it's building costs around, the ash trees.
Okay.
Yeah, we did put that into the motion, because,
All right, FD, we just have an extra word, third sentence down, new language regarding how, where hospitals. Regarding which, strike how and where and replace it with which. That makes sense?
Yep.
Item FA, the request was for appointment to the Energy and Sustainability Committee and the Conservation Commission. The next sentence talks about Jennings making.
No, well, because he does the on-call.
Right, but that, the title of it, it only says one
Okay.
application, but then it talks about and he's making the appointment, so. Yeah, so just in the title, add conservation, I think that was actually in the agenda.
It was, yeah. I quite honestly don't know how you took out all of that, you know, my eyes glaze over as I'm reading this whole.
I'm reading it like a critical resident,
Right.
looking for something.
Yeah, when I'm 123 pages in
Yeah.
to going through the packet to get to that.
All right. I'm a little amused on item C about the agreement that was inked in the sixties, but I warned just.
I told you I need Easter eggs in
Yeah.
for you. There were a few that were taken out that would have made you chuckle.
All right. I do have a question on item F on the quarter planning. Is that geared towards residents whose properties abut the road? It seems to me like there's a larger audience.
No, yeah, I talked about the outreach mailing.
Yeah.
Will be to, abutters,
Okay.
but yeah, it's obvious, we want the whole community there, but, the cost of it, you know, townwide mailing is, so.
Okay, so how should we change that? Can we just say we
No,
allow
no,
residents?
I promised that at the month.
Oh,
I did say at today's Sage Center luncheon that when we have the big meeting on the page score conditions assessment, we will do a townwide mail.
Okay,
Cause that everyone needs
that
to.
warrants
Oh,
that, yeah. So if you could just have residents just strike whose properties abut the road? Is that fair?
Yep,
All right.
oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And under item G, Angus, are you comfortable with the statement that you felt NVPC's analysis was lackluster?
I actually went and checked it because.
Yeah.
Said that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just wanna make sure you're okay.
well,
So he said,
well, he
Well,
told me what he said.
no, I don't know, I'm certain I didn't say MVPC, it was a consultant to MVPC, and I thought their work product was lackluster. So I think it could say MVP, you know, it could say, Jennings felt the analysis or the consultants I think I opined that, like, it surprises me sometimes what consultants get paid for, cause
Yeah.
I just wasn't impressed.
But it wasn't about.
It's not a document MVPC produced.
Yeah, so let's just strike the reference to them. and just
Yeah,
say the
yeah,
analysis.
definitely, yeah. We'll just say the
I mean,
analysis.
Gerard loves you guys, there's no.
No, we love him.
And we love him.
And they acknowledge, because we had some pretty
Yeah,
frank
yeah.
conversations with them, and they were under duress on a timeline, they had to get it done.
No, it
To
happened.
meet for a grant, whatever, but it's not the best, piece of work.
All right, that's what we,
well, make a friendly amendment to accept the minutes with modified.
yeah,
Accept that.
all right. We have to second that again?
So,
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
What?
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Anything less than that, Rick, we're going after you.
All right, so you had emailed around minutes from our planning meeting, so will those be added?
I just forget, since I don't often do minutes, I didn't know what the protocol was, so I didn't wanna put them into the packet, because I think there's like a pre-screening that goes on. So I sent them out in Word, if any of you have edits, just.
I was fine with them, I
Okay.
pre-screened Maxie, but.
So, yeah, I have it penciled
Okay.
in for the November
Okay.
4th agenda for those minutes to be voted.
All right.
So, and Max was out, he's been out sick all week,
Oh,
so I didn't have a chance to ask him like what's, because I understand he sends them to you
we
guys.
just
and then-
sent them to Chris.
Okay, so I didn't know what the protocol was, so I just sent them to all of you.
Do you have any, unnecessary verbiage in them that we?
No, I don't think so, it's just, I know that I certainly didn't write down everything that was said.
His language is not.
I made sure everything that I did write down was in there, but you guys might have notes, and since it is a goal setting and someone might look back on it, you know, if you said, oh, wait, we talked about this issue, you know, that's the kind of input I'm looking
You
for.
captured the issues that we threw in additional. and
Okay,
You end up with the matrix, it's all there anyway. So
Yeah, it's all there,
And it's a
exactly.
discussion pretty quick.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to F, general discussion, proposed Whittier Tech memorandum. I'm gonna say about this,
Got a few things to say
All right.
about it.
go for it.
The first question is, and I'd seen this before because Angus and I are supposed to be meeting with, Lane Glenn, I think Monday morning. The first question I have in the letter is, guess I'll go there. It says that they've been participating in discussions with the 11 community towns throughout 2024. Have we had any leaders of the 11 communities? Have we had any meetings with them?
Aside from the one here in the annex.
No, that was
You
not.
said with Northern Essex.
Yeah.
Oh, that was.
So that's total, this is in the letter of memorandum.
Well, so there was a meeting you and I went to in Amesbury City Hall.
That was the working group.
Correct.
That's not,
There was the, meeting with Orlando and, Mayor Gove.
those haven't been meetings to discuss the NECO, Whittier.
No, I think they're conflating this work.
That's what I'm saying. This is a
Yeah,
lot
you're
of,
right.
Yeah, they don't get
BS.
credit for that.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, you're right.
Again, I'll start at the beginning, I guess I'm at the letter from it. The first sentence is, in April, Whittier Tech filed a new statement of interest with the Mass School Building Authority. And I put with no consensus building from the communities. They just went ahead and did it after it got voted down. They just steamrolled right into it again and never asked what the communities wanted. That's still the same problem. So they've put this memorandum of agreement in that they want all the towns to sign off on. My understanding from talking to Senator Tar before we saw this was that the mayor of Haverhill is in agreement, and then I think we found out the mayor of Newburyport is, and then I think somewhere it says Amesbury also. My comment would be, without any reference in this document to a new regional agreement, why would we even entertain it? They're dangling something in front of you to distract you from the real issue. And once you embrace this and start going down this path, there is no motivation to look for a new regional agreement. And when I spoke to Senator Tar the second time, I sent him an email after our last group meeting and followed up and, with the legislative concern. And he said very clearly that if they do this merger between Northern Essex and Whittier Tech, they will need a new regional agreement. If we don't do it, they're still gonna need a new regional agreement before we fund it. So I don't understand why everybody is so resistant to acknowledging that and then making it happen. I just don't know how anything moves forward without that. So to hear that Haverhill, Newburyport, and Amesbury are on board with this is kind of mind-boggling. And I guess that would lead me to a question of any further follow-up on the letter that we're attempting to put out there for this legislation. Do any other communities looking to embrace it?
Only, Rowley to this point, and then interestingly, Wendy got a pressing query today.
Yeah, saw that, but that's,
So I think because it's in front of the Ipswich Select Board. I'm assuming.
I would suspect they would not be inclined to support it because they're looking for MSBA money and they're afraid to rock the boat. So Angus had requested they entertain it, but I'm not sure where that will go.
Yeah.
So this whole process is baffling as heck to me. I just don't understand it.
So the point of this agreement is to demonstrate to, MSBA that we're all playing nice and supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what their intent is, right?
Right.
I don't agree with that.
Oh,
I don't feel that we've been engaged, And they're framing this as a Whittier Tech and NECC shared campus working group, the working group to revise the, agreement. So they're trying to co-opt the working group that you guys are working on, right?
not in reality. I think they have a separate group, right? For their working group, totally different than our working group, but they're trying to perception wise merge the two.
Yeah,
If, the 11 community members meeting throughout 2024. No, we have not been meeting with them to go over the shared campus model. It's not been
mhm.
It's factually inaccurate.
All right, so do we wanna make recommended suggestions? Do you wanna decline signing it? I mean,
I would say if you have suggestions, why don't you put them out there, and Angus and I would meet with Mr. Glenn on Monday. Express those concerns.
so I didn't realize you were meeting with him.
That's the intent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Make it
just
11
the two
o'clock.
of you?
Well, so I think, so they had contacted me last Tuesday, kind of out of, somewhat out of the blue. That they had,
Was this the back and forth?
yeah, that they had, that they wanted to meet to talk about this and, it reached out to me, but said if you want to include others that should be part of it, great. This came in, I think, last Tuesday, and it said, unexpectedly, we have time in our schedule tomorrow, meaning last Wednesday. And so I reached out to, it was obviously too late to convene a meeting, and I reached out to Chris, say, hey, are you available? He said, yeah, so we got right back to them. We offered our window of availability, which was like a 4-hour block.
Mhm.
And then there were subsequent emails that were directed to Rebecca Oldham. Like Rebecca Ambra responded on my behalf
Yeah.
with our availability. And then I guess there was a subsequent series of emails where they apparently misunderstood her to be Rebecca Oldham. And so ended up meeting with Grove the next day. And when Rebecca Ambra, no, they didn't ghost us, but when Rebecca Ambra figured out what was going on, it's still on Tuesday, and said, no, we're West Newbury, we're not Groveland. Apparently their schedule had filled up. So then it became, and they had offered, they said they wanted to meet sometime next week or the week after. I knew I was hoping to take some vacation days next week, so I told Rebecca, don't book, I've only got a couple of work days and they're pretty full, so. So I said, let's look at something in November, so we had pinned down, I think, November 6th. And then we got a follow-up email, like, when was it, Chris? We contacted you a day ago, like yesterday, maybe it was Tuesday. To say, oh, we'd really like to meet before, I know we confirmed something for November 6th, we'd now really like to meet sooner, do you have time sooner? So we said, okay, fine, we'll meet Monday, like, great, because that's a great use of my very limited work time next week. I gotta use vacation, I got town meeting Monday night, and I've got, so anyway, so we agreed to Monday at 11. So I only reached out to Chris just since he's been part of this.
No, that's
I think
fine
if
with me.
there was a quorum that, like Rick, if you wanted to be there, or Wendy, if you wanted to be there, it wouldn't be too late. It would not be too late for us to post a meeting for Monday at 11. We could post it tomorrow morning.
No.
Oh, no, we
No,
yeah, it would be too late, so.
You guys are excused, you guys are excused.
decline anyway.
Yeah, but I thought, I thought we're, Chris and I have been part of the working group, we would be the
Yeah.
right people to be there,
That
and,
makes sense.
so, yeah, we'll meet, I don't know.
All right, so are you comfortable conveying or Rick, how do you feel about this? You haven't really said too much.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris said, and that I'm not sure, I don't recall exactly how you phrased it, but I think they've overstated, their ability to, or the group doesn't exist as they've suggested.
Yeah. I guess I would ask them, why are they trying to get this? MOU signed, what's the benefit? I think it is to reflect the MSBA that
Oh,
I think we recovered from the vote, we're all working together now, and I would see that as being the case,
Right.
But this is the problem, you've got the other towns.
I don't understand why they just signed it, did they not even read it?
I will suspect there's politics being played in the background.
Everybody needs a new school.
I think I shared with you guys what I'd heard from Carol McLeod.
In
That
the packet, yeah.
that she felt, her board was not likely to support this without some explicit reference to the regional agreement. I don't know, it wasn't in the packet.
In some way we saw it.
So
I think I
there's
sent
no
that
solution
forward.
to the regional agreement not being relevant, or not being applicable anymore after, with all the changes that are being, that are going to happen one way or another, or that almost seem like they have
As
to happen.
Senator Tar says, if you change the inherent structure of it with NECC and Whittier Tech, you have to
Well,
change the
okay,
agreement.
so why, I mean, that should be our reply. It seems to me, I mean, we'll just get that on the table and say, what are you talking about? Because you're changing, you're changing the structure of the agreement. It is no longer the agreement that town bought into 50 years ago. It can't be applicable anymore.
The implication of that would be that each city and town would need to go back to its legislative body to enter a new agreement.
Right. And
Which isn't necessarily.
in order to do that, we kind of
It's
have to
not
have.
necessarily
Everybody has
that,
to be
but you can
shooting at the
imagine
same
But you don't,
High Wire Act.
my understanding of what you're signing, it's vague enough that you don't have to know what you're signing onto. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's like Wendy says, there's allusions to we're all coming together, but no one could define exactly what you come together about.
Well, that's what,
So I don't think you could sign it, so I would be very puzzled as to why, have you talked to Newburyport about what they think they just signed? Because they've been fairly astute about this. No,
Well, up to a point.
up to a point,
Yeah.
right, up to a point.
Well,
working group,
before the mayor
the mayor didn't show
up
it.
to me.
2 out of 3 meetings, he didn't show, so.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, and this is a serious question, so this is dated October 17th. What date did Andrew Levine say that he's moving on?
I only know it was in the newspaper. I don't know when he actually.
Well, I mean, this is.
His party shot.
He signed it on the way out.
I have no, I mean, I'm not bad now, they like,
My understanding was,
there's turmoil, and, so.
I'm not sure there's a connection there, but it said the mayor, some document said the mayor of Newburyport was endorsing it. And he's not the mayor now, you're saying.
No, you're right, it's not, but.
October 15th, the chief of staff position was posted.
You know, he's moving on to a better job, obviously, it looked like what they said. so.
Right, yes, town
I'm
administrator.
surprised that Joe signed it.
It's right next to McCoy, isn't it?
Would you ever
Everybody
produce
started
this
out-
as a memo of
They
understanding?
backed off.
Do you think this is adequate as a memo of
There's something going
understanding?
on.
Guys, call it for what it is, it's pure bullshit.
Don't make me put that in minutes, okay?
All right.
Yeah,
And again, it's this November 1st, you
Yeah.
want to submit it to, I mean, it's
Your
just.
lack of planning is not our.
it's worse than pure, I won't say it.
No, I,
It's worse because what it's doing is distracting from the real issue, which is the rewrite of the regional agreement. It's trying to spin the dynamic in a totally different direction, with everybody going, oh, this is all good, I can agree with all this. And then everybody's gonna forget about the agreement.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, that's why it's even worse.
tell us the agreement, and then we'll tell you what the memo of understanding is.
I also think, I know how we all felt when we saw the, announcement in either late August or early September that came through the Whittier Wire on the focus groups they'd had in, I think, August 27th, where we, hadn't been invited to participate, and I know we all felt like that seemed a little tone deaf considering kind of what we've gone through. And this is referencing their planning group. Sitting here today, I don't know who's part of that. I don't know who was selected of the 11 communities. I think, did you know? I think you.
Well, that's why I asked, you haven't been on.
No, but I don't even, like, that's how little communicate. I don't even know.
Marygrove and Orlando were.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned,
They're
because
in
you
that
mentioned,
picture,
yeah, but it's, like, there's not been any communication other than the Whittier Wire. There's not been any communication.
I went to the Western, the community.
You did, and I'm signed up for Tuesday after my Worcester training. I'll be zooming into this Whittier listening session at 1 o'clock.
I'd like to hear what you have to say after that, because I'm kind of boycotting it, because that's almost a form of endorsement again. They're trying to take.
Well, but
cases and
I'm
call them-
signing a non-disclosure agreement, so I will not be able to share. Remember that?
You have to sign a non-disclosure?
No, I'm exaggerating, but remember you have to sign a statement of confidentiality to participate in these listening sessions that you're committing not to share.
I'm not signing one, so I won't participate.
So, well, I won't be telling you what we talk about.
This is offensive, as when they had their school committee meeting at Whittier, and you had to show ID to get in, which you don't have to.
I would suggest participating, Chris, because
I'm not
if
signing a
they're
non-disclosure.
only getting positive
But
feedback.
no, if they're looking for legitimate public feedback, you can't do that with a
It was,
non-disclosure.
I was pretty shocked when I,
That's-
Wait,
I
so when
used
you,
the word
I haven't registered yet, but I was thinking about it,
yes,
but they asked you to sign a
have
non-disclosure?
to check a box.
That says you will not discuss, like, so if you were in the meeting with Chris and Chris is swearing up and down, you won't go and say, hey, Chris was talking really bad about Whittier.
Yeah, no, the language is that you are agreeing, and you have to check this box in order to register for this event. You have to agree, you're not gonna talk
So
about.
you can't
what
tell
we're
us
talking
about it.
That is corrupt.
Technically,
That is corrupt at its face value. That is so disgusting.
I couldn't believe it.
So can that be brought up at your meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Just tell him, sounds
Yeah.
like, are you gonna participate?
Well, no, I'm not now.
All right.
Not if. I will go see that for myself, but when I get to that point,
You
my
will not check the
registration,
box.
my registration will stop.
All right. Are we done with this item?
That's disgusting. I'm sorry.
Look, I'm pulling it up now, I'll tell you exactly what register
So
here.
basically, if you had feedback that they didn't like to hear it, then it doesn't go anywhere, they can bury it, so they can cultivate the results to what they want.
Confidentiality agreement. To ensure everyone feels comfortable speaking freely, please do not repeat the conversations within your listening session outside of the session itself, and do not share the names of those in attendance. And you have to check the box. I agree with confidentiality guidelines of this statement in order to.
There's no option to say, no, I don't
There
accept
is
it.
no option,
So-
and there's further a conduct agreement, which I don't personally have a big objection to, but it's really at odds with what you're governed by with the Supreme Court decision that came out last year, where you cannot,
Other than town meeting.
this fellow cursed in open session, and you are prohibited from shutting him down because of free speech. So you can't manage the conduct in your public meeting, yet you've got to sign a paragraph-long conduct agreement in addition to the confidentiality agreement to go to this listening session.
And I'm wondering what the state would say about said confidentiality.
It's not a public meeting.
It's not a public meeting, but it's certainly, I mean, it's being facilitated by UMass. The contact is.
Don't say you have-
I'm not so sure it's still not a public meeting.
It's not a public meeting in the sense of nobody can just go.
And don't say you're having public hearing sessions to hear what you want people to say, and then you're gonna cull that information. They can manipulate it, they can put whatever they want at that point, because there is no checks and balances.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and if someone contradicts them, they've violated their confidentiality agreement.
There's just one more
It's,
reason.
I couldn't believe, I mean, when I saw that, I like that, I've never seen anything like that in the public sector. Or anywhere else for that matter.
Well, you can tell them that we're boycotting. Chris. Okay? For that reason, because it's not a true information session. Or working group, or whatever it is.
As long as they can't spell boycotting.
All right. Are we ready for the target agreement?
You got my blood pressure, they're gonna kill me.
MFB, are we looking to finalize this tonight? Agnes?
No, I mean, it's the first time you're seeing it. We are coming up on the, 3-town regional, and what we'd like to have by that meeting is, a strong sense among the 3 towns of what seems to be broadly agreeable and what items we want to emphasize for discussion at that shared meeting,
When is that meeting? But he said that, I'm thinking, is it next week?
It's in November.
All
I
right.
think I know it's in November. I think it's like, the 3rd week. Let me check my calendar.
11/26.
11/26, yep.
Okay, all right.
So we have a couple of meetings between now and then.
I mean, the whole elementary school thing, I don't understand why it's,
There's
I mean,
a fear
it's-
factor, they're afraid.
yeah, but I feel like it's an entirely reasonable,
It's not going anywhere, they're both opposed. At one point, Merrimack was okay with it, and then at the last meeting, it fell apart, they weren't gonna hear it in North Grove, so. That one's pretty much dead on arrival.
and who said this? Prior select boards, or,
Remember, we had the working group last year?
you went to it, I was.
I don't wish I had.
Yeah, but so are the same people on the boards, I mean, is it?
Carol was there, the select board from, Chris Manny, I think, was there. And Rebecca, and I'm trying to think who, Kathy Castro also there from Groveland. That was your opposition to it.
Right.
So Chris Mannix was opposed to it.
Merrimack was, I think he was, I not wanna positively state that, but I was surprised, cause prior to that, Merrimack had sort of gotten on board with it. I know Angus had talked to Carol and explained, we had no plan to pursue this, but it was just good to have in case anybody needed it. And so we went into that meeting anticipating that it was just Groveland we're gonna have to work on, and Merrimack said, no interest, you were there at that meeting.
The last meeting we held?
This was 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
He was
No,
there at the one.
I didn't take it away that Merrimack was against
I
changes.
think it's worth bringing up again, if it's been 2 years.
It was sabotaged because one select board member from Groveland went off and had a whole meeting with herself. Came back with a document that reflected what she wanted. That's what I recall. I think everybody got a little bit nervous because that meeting, Chris, we came out of there being optimistic, and then it just got railroaded. Right, it was just
And
not
there's no
gratifying.
way to prove it, cause, we'll say somebody's gonna do minutes of the meeting and they never did, so there aren't even minutes from it.
Yeah,
But my recollection was, I'm not gonna say 100%, Merrimack spun it and was opposed to it, which surprised me very much.
Not that meeting, maybe later,
It
Chris.
was the last one that we didn't pursue after this, so anyways.
all right, any other items that anybody wants to
Yeah.
discuss, or?
I don't understand. What's it, section 7A? Guess it's in paragraph 1, there's a whole bunch of changes. What you're adding to the count. That whole paragraph, it's like, what's going on? Anytime there's a change that seems subtle, I
Yeah,
wonder
so
what
this,
the,
they're trying to get away from that calculation, and this is, I think, gosh,
this is what happened last time, and I don't know what the implications are.
she was arguing about the calculation, she felt that it favored West Newbury and harmed Groveland.
So without understanding that, I don't understand it. I would need an explanation. Same with, what is this one? The budget shall include a breakdown by school building, which shows the total in the following cost centers: staffing, maintenance, administration, and other cost centers that may seem appropriate to show. Regional district programs based in elementary school buildings shall be identified and cost shown. Again, it feels like somebody's fishing for something. I'm not talking mill pond kind of fishing.
Where are we at, Chris?
Well, my packet, it's page, I think, 141,
It's not page 141 of the packet.
item number 3. It's highlighted in yellow.
Yeah, and basically everything highlighted in yellow is kind of like, means there's known to be some, lack of agreement.
Consensus.
Before you.
There may be other sections where there's lack of agreement, but those are.
Yeah, that yellow red highlight right there was
Yeah.
curious too. Why? What are they looking for again? List of all employees detailing number of.
Well, it seems to me like I'm, obviously, I've never been a school superintendent, but in my role, when you're doing budget, you don't know, like, this would be impossible to
Yeah.
I'm
provide
thinking that's a,
in January for
The
next
following-
September. You're gonna have staffing changes, retirements, layoffs, new people, like, the enrollment's gonna change. You can't possibly provide that
And what?
in a way that's in any way binding, like, it's not a reasonable
It feels like somebody's fishing again to say,
Yeah.
oh, you're getting a larger percentage of resources in Pentuck, in West Newbury than in wherever.
Mhm.
So I just, again, it's almost impossible to accomplish.
So I think the problem, well, I think you may very well be right there, and, you know, Justin explained pretty clearly last year the difficulty of trying to figure out class sizes, how many classes are there in each facility based on the number of students, you know, trying to stay within the sweet spot. Yeah, this just looks like, it, you know, somebody.
But that's
still-
one thing they want to-
Somebody still has this lingering resentment that in some schools, classes are smaller because just that's the way the math has to make it.
They want a list of employees detailing the number of classes assigned to each. That's, you can't provide it by name, first of all. I mean, it's inappropriate at every level. So. Again, somebody's looking to set up a battle over something there. And same with on the next page, there's some yellow red again, so it's all black and white. Yeah, the budget shall include,
Breakdown by, yeah, this is the same, breakdown by school building. which-
yeah, somebody feels like they're paying 30 cents more than somebody else.
Or they're trying to collect data so they can head in a certain
And if
direction.
you start pitting one town against the other town, this agreement's gonna fall apart, so I would never, I think that's.
Well, the other thing is, as Rick just said, a lot of this is constrained solely by population. Right, so it's solely a result of the fact that we don't bus kids from community to community.
Right.
Everybody's stuck with what they got. So the numbers just are a result of that. You can't really have a fight over them.
What about the green underline changes, issues with those? Are those, when it says Groveland/West Newbury, what does that mean?
I think a lot of those came out of the language that we had put on the table a year ago, which Groveland has now come around to say they're in agreement
Okay.
with. Yeah, so,
What is the excess and deficiency circuit breaker? That was an addition. That's on the top of page 138. It just seems like I'm a little suspicious why that was added.
so those are, yeah, two different, excess and deficiency is like their version of free cash.
Okay,
Circuit breaker, that term has come up in many meetings I've been part of, but I don't have a good understanding of it. What I can tell you is I think it is a amount that is reimbursed in the subsequent year.
I think it's the special needs, the town pays for it and they get a percentage back in the following year.
I just wonder about the inclusion with it, you know, here, what the significance of that is. It wasn't there before. So what is the process laid out for this, Angus?
Well, in order to amend the regional agreement, it's got to go to town meeting in all three towns. So I think where we are now is, are we gonna have a package of amendments for the spring town meeting? And I think the hope was that at the November 26th meeting, I can tell you, speaking for myself and Carol and Rebecca Oldham, our preference would be to figure out what can we agree on? And at least let's just get that stuff done. And if there's stuff we can't agree on, let's table it for a future round of revisions, but let's not hold up the whole thing and let's get some of this housekeeping done that's broadly supported. And, I think, you know, where we'll have everyone in one place on November 26th. That's why we want to go at it, you know, in terms of, again, me, Carol and Rebecca, we want to come into that with information circulated ahead of time to the three boards that, and FinComs, that is clear, that frames the discussion. So if there's items that need discussion, those are specifically called out. And if we can kind of say like all these other things, if we're correct in reading our own boards, that this package of things are largely supported, hopefully we can come out on November 26th with agreement to at least bring that, as well as anything else that there might be agreement reached that night, so that we can all, you know, be ready when January comes and we got to translate this to a warrant article with a detailed appendix with the red line changes. We really need to know by I'd say like February first, what we're proposing. This isn't something we want to be wordsmithing in February and March when we're in the middle of budget and everything else.
I think we're gonna need an explanation on what the impact of these changes are. What are the consequences? Simple as saying it's when you just excess and deficient circuit breaker. How does that impact the formula? Does it? Why is that? Why is it being proposed as a change? After the last,
Particularly where the language says all anyways, so it would have to
I'm
be. in
skeptical of
there.
any change
I
here.
know, I understand the point, but that's the point we arrived at, where, we're even skeptical of stuff that may be rather benign. Didn't we, one part of that discussion we had was that it was going to be reviewed outside of the group to assure that things wouldn't conflict. Weren't we gonna,
Ask the business manager to look at it.
yeah, exactly, right. We
That's
wanted,
where ultimately I would suggest.
we wanted the business manager to be part of the discussion, because it's gonna be stuff. Like a business manager should be able to say that, well, you know, excess and deficiency circuit breaker being listed, it's just one of several anyway, so whether it's listed or not, it's gonna be disclosed. That's what I would expect him to say. We don't know that, but, you know, we expected the business manager to have good input on this. Angus, does that make some sense to you?
Yeah, definitely.
And the new business manager, how does,
She's very good. I
She's
mean,
very
she's
good.
still new,
Yeah.
you know, she's just been there a couple of months,
Yeah.
but she's,
yeah,
you know, she's,
yeah, well, sometimes when they're new, they're actually haven't picked up bad habits yet.
Yeah, she was trained by the prior one though, so,
Well, was she?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, okay.
was she?
Well, trained, but I mean,
yeah, I think she's
not,
been here more than a year, Angus, because she was
Oh,
at
yeah.
our last building.
Oh,
meeting.
oh, that's,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
but trained.
But he was a good businessman, yeah.
You're right, Chris. All special education reimbursement program, commonly known as the circuit breaker program.
All
Yeah, I
right,
think
so,
we need explanations on
But
that.
I do know that this, one thing that, and, you know, Justin and Suzanne and Carol really understand this stuff way better than I do, but I do know this issue of reimbursement in the subsequent fiscal year is something that's I think that's gonna be an issue for Pawtucket on this, because they don't know what their reimbursement is until they get it. So if it's being asked to provide prospectively for the next budget year, they don't know what, but anyhow, they can articulate that better. But I think that's this issue of the funds come in, there's a lag time, is gonna create a challenge to
Yeah, but-
project that in a budget.
But in that section, it's only talking about the known knowns. You're probably exactly right, but that's not asking you to punt on that number, that's actually to report the number as it exists in that section.
Yeah,
so
Anyways,
are we okay with the finance advisory committee as proposed? I mean, that's all stuff that we originally, right?
Right, that's the way it used to be, and for some reason in the last revision, they eliminated it. I have no idea why.
well, I can tell you why. I mean, not because I was here. I'm gonna tell you is hearsay, because I was, you know, that first round of amendments, I was, you know, pretty well brand new. But what I was told at the time was that finance advisory committee had been put in place kind of in the old days when there was real financial problems with the district, and that it was, you know.
Insolvency?
Yeah, and what I was told anecdotally by people like Carol McLeod, who was there all along, was that in practice, this hadn't actually been meeting, at least for some number of years before I started.
Correct, but it was meeting when I was.
So it was viewed as kind of defunct, and what was going on when I started, which has continued, is this, you know, these regular meetings that take place among the,
Right.
you know, town administrator types in the three towns with the administration. And I think in 2018 and 2019, when those changes were being made, there was a broad sense by, you know, Carol, and it wasn't Rebecca, it was Denise Stemkowski at that time. I was brand new, but they felt it was working really well. They felt they were getting the information they needed. They didn't feel a need for, you know, this overarching committee. So obviously the pendulum seems to have swung back, and people, so this is drafted in a way that kind of it doesn't even reference this more like finance working group we have, because that's just something we're gonna do. That's not part of, you know, the work. So, yeah, we try to restore that, but in a way where there'd be two, you know, a baseline of 2 meetings per year, not necessarily more than that. But to basically, kind of codify what we did the last budget cycle, and I think maybe the last 2 budget cycles, where this kind of you know, early in the budget season and then late in the budget season. One thing I noted in my comments, and I'm not sure how clearly this came through, but it seemed to me there's this language in the budget where, you know, if the budget isn't basically something the towns can absorb, that they can call a meeting. It seems to, and yeah, so I put in a note. As written, this seems to be distinct from the Regional Finance Advisory Committee defined earlier. Seems like this ought to be rewritten such that this meeting would be convened by that advisory committee. Because the way this is written, the charge of this group, but it's not really clear to me in my reading of it, what is this group like? So this still needs a little bit of work. So I would suggest if we keep this on for November 4th, we can all read it more closely. That's one section I'd like to tweak a little bit more.
But then how would we get answers to these questions? I mean, we don't want to be in this meeting on the 26th asking questions because we're not gonna get anywhere, you know?
Right.
Well, somebody's gonna have to do a presentation, because other than the housekeeping, almost every one of these issues needs an explanation.
Yeah,
Where it has arisen from, what are the impacts, and what are the benefits?
Maybe there could be,
like,
maybe on the 26th, there could be kind of a list of things that we, you know, see as, not just we, but me and Carol and Rebecca, see as kind of largely non-controversial in housekeeping. That could be kind of clearly presented. Then we could define, these are the issues that have come up that need some more discussion. And we could start that night, but maybe we come into that, you know, where we've kind of preset a schedule of a meeting in December, a meeting in January, and set like an internal deadline that if we can get to Freetown agreement on these open issues by January 30th or whatever date we say, and then we follow through and we commit to having those 2, that would be whether those are among the full boards or designees of the boards. Because that meeting that took place two August ago, that Chris was there and Rob was there, that was never a formal committee. That was like kind of a very much of an ad hoc thing.
yeah.
So maybe there's like a, you know, we'll try to make a push to see what we can get agreement on, and if it's not agreed by late January, it's not gonna be on the spring warrant, but I think if we can get a commitment that those things that are agreed, we'd like to get done and just reduce the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of trying to make it perfect,
Yeah,
make it good enough for this round.
Yeah.
Commitment to,
So will there be time on the 26th for this? I mean, that's.
yeah, it's basically gonna be half and half.
It
It's gonna be,
is.
half of it's gonna be a state of the schools presentation by Justin. And the other half, he's gonna turn it over to the towns.
Okay.
And how many days we're allocating for this meeting?
where's the meeting gonna be held?
At the middle high school.
But in the upstairs room that we use?
I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering if we're gonna try and do that. The only reason I comment is sometimes he uses that as where he brings in a whole bunch of people to speak to the group at large, and the meeting goes on a long time because he's trying to rally support of the troops and all that stuff. So if we go upstairs, it seems like that doesn't happen as much as when it happens when he sets it up specifically downstairs. So it would be nice maybe to keep it upstairs where you know, it's.
Or he's constrained by the environment.
Yeah, exactly, right, yeah, thank you, I couldn't, getting older.
And to Rob's earlier point, what happened in the last set of meetings, we got pretty close to consensus on the
Yeah.
documents, and then at the very last meeting, Kathy Castronellis came in with a whole separate document, which was really odd, and ignored the one we had, and everything just fell apart.
Yes,
So
that's exactly.
as this
right.
moves forward, you can eliminate and diminish, but you can't be adding other components. I'm saying you, I mean, when the 3 of you get together, Carolyn, Rebecca, and yourself. mean, because if that happens, it just becomes, you just can't keep modifying.
It was a moving target. It was
Yeah.
a moving target. We came out of that meeting at one time feeling that we almost had agreement in pretty much to a document that would work. And then, as I said earlier, it was totally derailed. Out of the blue, I thought, but
It was for me.
All right.
I gotta say, I feel like a bunch of the comments here came from the same source.
Yeah,
That's why I'm skeptical.
and is that even the position of that board or just that board member?
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, we don't know.
Yeah,
We don't know.
all right,
Just as a just minor note, it was intentional to rename them all select board. They verified they are now self-identifying as select board, so
okay.
that's kind of
Well,
interesting.
maybe we can at least agree on that.
That's what I'm saying, boilerplate stuff to correct, at least that.
You know, it's gotta be half of the citations for change.
That's the thing, there's a lot more red ink in here than, like, if we just get the housekeeping stuff done.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, okay, there's, discussion of potential training requirements imposed by boards appointed by the select board.
So, when this was put on, I guess I'll just share what's been going on. We, obviously we've had some staffing, changes. We now have, full-time land and building services administrator who came to us with significant prior experience, really all of the areas that she's supporting. And, so she's come with some observations, and that's kind of, I guess, there's been some synergy there with Sam Jocelyn, our building inspector, who also has some critiques of, how decisions have been written. And I share some of these questions about kind of scope of authority. It seems that there's instances where decisions have been written that impose conditions that really, we're not attorneys, but it seems to us exceed the authority of the board approving those. There's some training that needs to happen, I'll just put it that way. And I think we were all at, post a public hearing, 6 or 8 weeks ago, that I think we all had varying levels of critique of how that was run. So, right now, just in the last couple of days, there's been progress, significant progress on, member of the ZBA is very, very open to, getting training and getting town council in. We're in correspondence with, Robin Stein and KP about getting, a date in ideally November, that we can get the ZBA some training. So I think at this point, I wouldn't say any actions needed, but I did float the idea with Wendy is that at some point where the board, your board is the appointing authority. If the time comes, there are towns out there in the Commonwealth where the appointing authority puts a requirement for training for regulatory boards or commissions that you oversee. And I don't think we're there quite yet, but it's something that we are talking about at a staff level, because if there's boards that are exceeding their authority, and I mean, there's an appeal right now going to the board next week. That I'm not gonna go into detail, but, it exposes, if there's.
It's a town.
Yeah, so, and I think that, that's a board that has for many, many years had limited, if any, staff support, so it's understandable that they might not be current on roles and responsibilities, but now that we have more staff, it's like kind of bringing it into the daylight. And there's an appeal right now before the board, based on language and the decision that arguably shouldn't have been a decision in the first place. So it creates real world problems.
Does citizen planner still work out?
They do, yeah. In fact, I've been in touch with them a number of times, provided Jen the list of all the workshops. They offer trainings. They also will come in and do on-demand trainings.
They're very good.
Very, very good program, very cost effective. So I think this is one to keep an eye on.
Okay. Confirm the date change, Monday, November 4th.
Yep.
We're all good with that.
Don't be right ahead, yeah.
Yep. Review working list of future select board agenda items. What do you have in mind?
Oh, I have a list. And I forgot to make copies. I'll send that around.
Okay.
Rebecca and I, we always keep a list of like future
Mhm.
items, and I thought that since there's kind of, we're, basically where we're coming from is we know that January first, you know, between budget and it just, things take off. So there's a lot of things we're looking to kind of get done in the next 2 months. So we have a list, we do, you know, often when we send the chair the draft agenda, we have like an informal list of future items. So, working with Rebecca over the last day or so, we've formalized that, and, I did actually update it this afternoon, and I just forgot to print it, but I'll send that around, and we thought it'd be helpful to just make sure we're all on the same page, and if there's things in any of your head that like, you wanna make sure we don't forget, that we just are all kind of sharing information on, so you know what's already on our radar, and that way, if there's things we're missing, we can collectively make sure nothing slips through the cracks, because there's a lot of loose ends, you know, we got housing production plan, housing mitigation plan, interagency mutual aid agreement, I mean, we have a long list of things that like are on our list, for the fairly near term, like, so.
All right.
I have my own list, I call it curiosities of items that, like you say, might have slipped through the cracks, and when we're gonna get them, I have 22 things on.
Actually, I mean, it's on the shared server, I don't know if you wanna.
It's not a public road.
Yeah, it's in the select board, it's in the main, meetings.
So under correspondence, the applicant, do we need to discuss that, or is that just?
Nope, just informational.
So the question is whether it's gonna be taken with or without prejudice.
Well, they've requested it without prejudice,
Yeah.
so
Does the board understand the implications of that, or?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
That would, not
They
that
know
would.
the name, for 25,
Well, what would be their grounds for
future.
being with prejudice?
That's a good thing.
Yeah. So Chris, I don't know if you wanna just kind of spitball anything now, and we can just make sure it's on the list? Or I can
There's
just send
some
it,
I can do with some I don't.
yeah, so. But I'll just send it around.
okay,
And I think that'll be a good exercise, not for every meeting necessarily, but from time to time, just to make sure that, you know, we're not forgetting anything. Yeah.
all right, do you have a motion to recess?
Yeah, we'll recess to executive session.